We'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Rishi Sunak declares he is up for the fight with lawyers and European judges as he reveals his plan to deport small boat migrants.
Good morning. It's 6 o'clock on Wednesday, the 8th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Leading the news this morning, the Prime Minister has unveiled his new illegal migration bill, describing the plan to stop small boat crossings as tough but necessary. The policy will apply to anyone entering the country illegally. We'll speak to the Home Secretary live on the programme just after 9 o'clock this morning.
The RMT union has suspended next week's Network Rail strikes, fuelling hopes of a breakthrough in the long-running dispute. Walkouts across 14 train operators are currently still due to take place from the 16th of March.
Britain's most notorious prisoner, Charles Bronson, resumes his parole hearing today. Giving evidence this week, he said, "If I was a dog, I'd have the RSPCA on my side."
And snow has covered large parts of the country overnight as the UK faces a cold snap that could see temperatures dip as low as minus 15 degrees. Weather warnings are still in place this morning with forecasts of rain, sleet and snow.
Which leads us nicely to your pictures, what you're waking up to this morning. Now, it may be, when I started out today in leafy Surrey, snow everywhere.
Was there?
Yes.
Oh, nothing in London. No, it was nothing in London.
As you get into the heat of the big city,
yes,
everything melted.
I wondered if my car was horribly late because of snow, and I went to look out the window. Nothing. It was just late. I got excited, childlike excitement still. But anyway, were you lucky like Eamonn? Did you wake up to a winter wonderland? If so, send us your pics and we'll try and put them on the screen.
And they were big, fluffy flakes.
Oh, dreamy.
Big, fluffy
Although not
ones.
in March, it's going to ruin my flowers. Stop going on about it.
OK. Let us see your snowy pictures. GBViews at gbnews.uk, or you can tweet at GB News. OK, our top story this morning. Rishi Sunak has declared he's up for a fight with European courts as he revealed his plans to deport almost all migrants, he says, who arrive on small boats.
Well, introducing the legislation yesterday, the Home Secretary said there was more than a 50% chance that it would be incompatible with human rights rules.
Now, all of this comes as the United Nations Refugee Agency said it was profoundly concerned by the bill and that it would amount to an asylum ban.
Well, yesterday, our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood, asked the Prime Minister if he's ready for challenges to his new bill.
Already legions of lawyers are preparing to tackle you over this legislation. Firstly, are you up for the fight? And secondly, what's plan B if they win?
Of course we're up for the fight and wouldn't be standing here if we weren't. But we're confident that we will win. And on the Section 19(1)(b) statement, I think it's really important for everyone to recognise there's absolutely nothing improper or unprecedented about pursuing bills with a 19(1)(b) statement. It absolutely does not mean that the bill is unlawful. We believe that it is lawful, that we are acting in compliance with our international obligations, and we are also meeting our obligations to the British public. And again, I just point out on the Rwanda policy, which many people said again was wrong, and we expected the challenge on it. As you saw recently, we were successful in defending that policy. I think actually unequivocally successful in the High Court. That policy is now moving to the Court of Appeal in just over a month's time, so we'll await the outcome of that. But again, we're confident in our arguments. We believe we're doing the right thing, and I believe the courts will see that as well.
So what sort of fight is it going to be? Deputy Editor of Capax, Alice Denby, joins us in the studio today. He says he's up for the fight. Is it going to be a bloody one?
Well, I suppose I should declare an interest here because this policy was suggested in large part by my parent organisation, the Centre for Policy Studies. But I hear speaking for myself. I think, frankly, Rishi Sunak will relish the fight here. I think, politically speaking, taking on European judges, taking on sort of lefty lawyers is going to play very well for him. I think, practically, this policy is going to be very difficult to deliver by the next election. But I think if he has to fight the next election on a take back control of our borders platform and sort of retrace Brexit battle lines, I don't think he will shrug that challenge.
OK, so that's politically it might work well for him, but when he's saying he's confident he's going to win in the courts, and then Suella Braverman saying there's a more than a 50% chance that this won't meet with human rights laws, who's right, the Prime Minister or the Home Secretary?
I think it's unclear. I think it may be that to make this policy work, we will have to leave the European Convention on Human Rights. And as I say, if that is the challenge, then I think that will be an election platform.
And obviously the United Nations had something to say about the bill yesterday. The legislation, if passed, would amount to an asylum ban, extinguishing the right to seek refugee protection in the United Kingdom for those who arrive irregularly, no matter how genuine and compelling their claim. It was interesting, the Prime Minister, though, yesterday saying, look, we know people are gaming the system and actually we'll be able to better target the help to people who are genuine refugees if we can get rid of all these people who are taking advantage of our generosity.
Yeah, I think the situation we have in the Channel is a moral abomination. I think it's the result of decades of failure to get a grip of asylum, to effectively deport people, to effectively process claims. And I think it's really regrettable that it's come to the point where we are having this kind of, tough rhetoric. But frankly, the status quo is untenable and it's immoral. And I think it's probably right, ultimately, that the only way you can get a grip of this challenge is to make it impossible to gain asylum if you come here irregularly over the Channel. I don't see another way to break that link between people smuggling and gaining asylum in this country, and I think it's deeply regrettable. But I think that's where we are. And if you can get a grip of this problem, then Britain will be able to be more open and accepting to refugees from places where we choose, places like Hong Kong or Afghanistan or Syria, by safe legal routes.
What about the claims that this is a sort of Boris Johnson playbook, that, he's taking on the courts and this does well? It comes back to your first point, really, that politically this could do well for him, for the right of the country at an election.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't necessarily say it was a Boris Johnson playbook. I think it's an electoral reality that people, particularly in seats that will be crucial at the next election, hate the spectacle of people crossing the Channel, hate the idea that we don't have control of our own borders. And I think, morally speaking, even for people, sort of London political commentators like me, you cannot accept that people die crossing the Channel. It's not a tenable situation, and we do have to take back control of our borders.
But you could get sacked from the BBC for thinking or saying such, and big headlines and big pictures. Just show the Daily Telegraph here of the football presenter Gary Lineker as well. So he faces being sacked or certainly being rebuked by the BBC for likening this plan that has been announced to the plan the Nazis had during the Second World War.
I mean, I think that's a ludicrous comparison. I think there's nothing genocidal about wanting to have a controlled immigration policy. I think his comments were ill-judged, especially for someone who works for the BBC, which is supposed to be a politically neutral broadcaster.
Yeah, the Director General warned him last year to stay away from politics, didn't he? And here he goes again. We should stress at this point, though, the papers have used the word Nazi. He never used that in his tweet. He talked about the language used in Germany in the 1930s, just to be accurate in that reporting. Where do you think this will go? We'll ask Suella Braverman what she thinks later on about Gary Lineker. Do you think he should be sacked?
I mean, that's up to the BBC. It would certainly save them a great deal of money. And that's a question for them. I mean, everyone knows what his political views are. I don't think it's necessarily relevant to his football commentary.
Well, we'll be putting that to the Home Secretary. She's going to be live on this very programme after 9 o'clock this morning. If you hang around and tune in for that, Suella Braverman, just after 9 o'clock.
OK, now it is still dark just about outside this morning, but overnight large parts of the UK were blanketed with snow and ice.
Yellow weather warnings in place for the next few days. You're advised to take extra care if you're travelling. In the studio now, Nathan Rao. He's the weatherman. He's the man that knows all about this. Well, what is, I mean, so I'll say we use this term yellow weather warning. What's a yellow weather warning?
Right, this is an interesting question because the warnings are issued really when it comes to the impacts that the weather is going to have. So a weather warning, a yellow weather warning, is the lowest grade of Met Office weather warning, and that means that certain impacts are likely in the warning area because of the snow, and that can include power cuts and travel disruption.
Right, OK.
And so yellow, amber, and then red is the most severe.
Yellow, amber. Why would you even do that? Why would you not just look like amber and green?
Soon we'll be naming the snow, so don't worry.
That's right. We'll be naming the snowstorms.
I think that's a terrific idea. I'd go for that.
We'll start with Anna or Elsa from Frozen.
Yes.
Listen, so how unusual is it for March? Because I've seen lots of commentary saying, hang on a minute, I'm not subscribing to this. It's supposed to be spring.
It's bizarre. Well, we are 8 days into spring now, or the meteorological spring, and we seem to be in the middle of winter, and actually this is probably the most significant snow event we've had at this time of year since the 2018 Beast from the East. So if you remember in 2018 in February, suddenly when we were just about to go into spring, it's not unheard of, but it's unusual. If you think the last 4 years at this time of year, it's actually been quite mild in terms of last year. We were talking about hot weather at this time of year and the previous years. But it's that thing about the British weather where we are in this cusp of where the weather can change on a hairpin, go from freezing cold or warm, and it's so unpredictable. So not unheard of, but unusual, and will have some impacts this week.
Yeah. Is this in any way, I know this is coming from the Arctic, is this in any way related to what's gone on in Spain and North Africa, which has been hitting our fruit and veg?
Not really, no. This is something different. This is caused by what we've been talking about for a number of weeks now, which is this sudden stratospheric warming event in the Arctic, which is where the air circulation changes direction. It falls and it pushes cold air sort of where we are, and it also causes high pressure to build in where we are, and that draws in northerly air to come down. So it's sort of, I mean, all weather is linked, but it's not directly linked to the fruit and veg situation. This is something that was set in about 10 days ago when we all started thinking, OK, there could be a cold snap coming, but we don't know where, and now we're seeing the effects of it.
Personally, I don't really get that over-annoyed and panicky about weather situations.
But that's because we live close to London. I think if you're in rural Wiltshire and you've got a sort of...
Yeah. No. Oh. I just mean, the fact it's March. Listen, I can remember it snowing at Easter. I can distinctly as a child remember eating my Easter eggs, looking at snow. So, things happen. But is it because we like the predictability? Do we get annoyed? Do we get sort of slightly freaked by this because this is not supposed to normally happen at this time of year?
I think there's a mixture of things going on. First of all, on your point about Easter, you're more likely to get a white Easter than you are to get a white Christmas. Yes,
well, that's a good
There you go. So how many times have we talked about Christmas and is it snowing? You're more likely to see it at Easter than you are at Christmas.
Oh, we're going to have a white Easter then?
Don't know too early.
Oh, come on.
I can't quite say just yet. But I think it's the unpredictability of it, and also the fact that we always seem to be so unprepared for it. I mean, it always sort of lands on us.
Yeah.
I've been writing about this this coming for the last 2 weeks, and it seems that the warnings are only just with us. You know, the warnings come out a couple of days earlier. I actually spoke to the Met Office about this yesterday and say, why is it they sort of come so quickly before the event? And it's all to do with the specificity of where the snow is going to hit, and it's all to do with impacts rather than just it's going to snow. So they need to be really sure where the snow is going to hit and what the impact of that is going to be before they can issue the warnings. But it always seems that we're unprepared, and when these things happen, the trains stop, the airports close down, everything grinds to a halt.
We don't invest in extreme weather, be it hot or cold, because the idea is that why invest in that equipment or infrastructure if it's only going to last for 3 days or whatever?
Yeah, absolutely. And in places like Sweden, so the grit on the roads stops working at below -10. So if that happens in Sweden, they've got a fleet of hundreds of snowplows to come and clear the roads. We just wouldn't invest in that because they could sit idle for years. They heat the pavements in Norway underground. They heat the pavements.
Seriously?
Yeah.
How do they do that?
I have no idea, but they do.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Pretty much like an underfloor heating, I suppose. But we would never need to. I mean, when was the last time we actually saw the pavements in the UK frozen for a length of time? So it's a case of do we spend money on this or not?
So look, I'm just looking at the impacts. I think there's 80 schools closed in Scotland, and as you might expect when you've got a blast from the Arctic, places like Shetland, Aberdeenshire badly affected. But I'm also seeing Wiltshire Police this morning saying please don't drive unless absolutely necessary. Heavy snow overnight there.
Yes.
So which areas have been worst affected?
Right, now this is coming in 2 stages. Today and tomorrow it's going to be Scotland and sort of the coast of northern England, down northeast England, Yorkshire, Teesside, that sort of area, and the south, which is going to be, if you cut from South Wales across, just under the Midlands, downwards, that is where there's a snow warning in place today and tomorrow. So that includes the West Country, London, the South East, the home counties, Kent, Sussex, all that sort of area. They are getting a weather warning for snow today and tomorrow, where there could be up to, I think, 10 inches or possibly more in very, very rural, exposed areas within that region. So this area that you've just mentioned, we are on the hit list today and tomorrow, and then it sort of moves to the north and becomes confined to the north later in the week and into the weekend. And then beyond then, there is also talk about this cold weather bedding in the north, but milder in the south. The problem with the milder weather in the south, when it comes in off the Atlantic laden with moisture and bumps into this cold air, it turns to snow. And that's what we're seeing at the moment.
OK. Nathan, it's always fascinating talking to you because you're so enthusiastic. You relay the picture so well.
I get it from you, Eamonn.
It's a joy to talk to you. Thank you. Just generally, advice then, as the week goes on, you're more likely to be affected in the north and the northeast. Is that right?
Pretty much all of the north. So if you take Wales upwards, all of that area is under a snow warning from tomorrow onwards through the week.
And it sounds
quite complicated. So today, really the south, and tomorrow is the south and a bit of the north, and the rest of the week it's the north and into the weekend.
If you think you're going to be affected, make sure you have a shovel in your car. That's the one bit of advice after all these years I've been doing this job. A shovel in your car.
And the phone topped up.
And a phone topped up. There you go. Top tips for you. Do send your pictures. We're dying to see the winter wonderlands out there. I haven't seen any of it. I feel really left out.
I always carry a coat.
Do you?
I got a coat 3 years ago which has like tin foil on the inside of it. And it's the best coat I've ever got. It keeps you snug as a bug in a rug.
I'd be the first one to die if I was caught in a snowstorm. I'm literally a reptile. I cannot cope in the cold at all. I hate it. So
you can be caught overnight.
You can get caught on motorways overnight. So actually, if you are doing long distance travel, shovel,
water,
food, water, phone charged, blankets. There you go.
I mean, like food for me would be like a Mars bar.
Well, that's emergency supplies, yeah.
Well, no, that would be like staple supplies, emergency supplies.
You wouldn't eat a Mars bar normally, would you? Oh, maybe you would.
I could feast.
Could you?
Well, like, if it wasn't a Mars bar, maybe a Bounty bar.
That's OK. That's not nearly as bad. Coconut's much better than all the stuff they stuff a Mars bar full. But anyway,
but emergency food in the car.
Then my kids found our stash. That was a bad idea. Anyway, it's 6:16. Let's bring you up to date with the rest of today's top stories.
OK, rail workers have called off upcoming strikes. They've received a new pay offer. The RMT union says it has suspended all action for Network rail workers following receipt of the new offer from the employer.
A weight loss jab will become available through the NHS in England for some people living with obesity. The appetite suppressant Wegovy will be offered on prescription. Previous studies found that those who received the drug as a weekly injection over 68 weeks saw their weight drop by 12%.
And the Foreign Secretary set to announce the government's new approach to helping women and girls around the world. This is International Women's Day, and James Cleverly will travel to his mother's hometown, Sierra Leone, to visit a school and a hospital to see UK-funded projects in action. He'll also announce new funding for a sexual health and rights programme that will support around 10 million women. No, it is International Women's Day, and I thought, I realised how important a role women have played in my life. For instance, I wouldn't be here without a woman.
Of course.
Right, that's the first thing.
Yeah.
The second thing is, I could sit here and I could talk about Isabel and...
what a nightmare.
No, I mean, I could sing your praises throughout all of this, but we thought, let's not do that. I thought, there's so many women that have, I mean, gosh, my school teachers, my agents throughout the years, so many people around me. I've got one daughter who's very important to me. I've got 3 sons who are very important to me as well. And incidentally, Declan's birthday today.
Oh, happy birthday, Declan.
My oldest son's birthday today. And but anyway, I thought, women-wise, in our business, let's have a look at
who have you gone for?
Who I've chosen
your inspirational
here.
women?
I just want to know what order these pictures are in.
Bear in mind, I wore my shoulder pads today to be, powerful women.
There we are.
Oh, I love those choices.
Claire Balding
She's
and
superb.
Gabby Logan.
Oh, I'm jealous of your choices. Maybe mine as well. Yeah.
You see, I look at them and I think, what you need in terms of anchoring, doing this job, the knowledge, the personability, to be able to deal with a live situation. Those are 2 people who I look up to in this business.
Yeah, 100%.
And then also I would say we're very, very lucky. Sorry, let me just show you the next picture I'm trying to say there. But
have we got another one?
Just let's have the next picture.
Oh,
lovely.
Oh, your favourite.
I did have a nicer picture than that. I don't know why it's not there, but anyway, the Queen Consort, I think, is someone who I have met in my time, and I think we're very, very lucky, and we will be very lucky to have her as our future Queen.
Yes, I can't disagree with those. And like you, I struggle to pick my favourites because there are so many. And having worked in this job, there have been loads of women in this industry who've inspired me. But the first woman who ever made me want to take up journalism was Anna Ford.
Yeah.
I watched her as a child and wanted to be like her. Now I've got her bob. Do you think I could be a bit of an Anna Ford? And obviously my mum, like you, my mum's been a huge role model to me, so I think we should all be thinking, we've got Mother's Day coming up, but I do think International Women's Day, there's my mum.
Sorry, which one is the mother and which is the daughter then? Let me just see.
She's just great. I love my mum. And I have to say, I did choose Beyonce as well, because anyone who can sing and dance at the same time as fabulously as her is just not human. And she sings Who Runs the World, girls, and, she's a big supporter of women, so a shout-out for Beyonce. Queen Bee, as they call her.
Lovely. No arguments with any of that. Let us know your nominations for women that impress you. 6:20 is the time. It is also No Smoking Day, and despite all the warnings and changes to packaging, there are still almost 7 million of you doing it. We'll ask a hypnotherapist about the best way to quit next.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Patrick Christie's, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6. We tackle the day's news agenda like you've never seen before. It's high tempo, high octane, the most controversial topics, and the best guests. You will not be able to take your eyes and ears off it. I'm not afraid to ask the questions that you really want answered. 3 till 6 p.m, Monday to Friday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Just looking at some of the things we've got still to come on the programme today.
Yes, as we've been discussing, it is International Women's Day. So at 6:45, we'll meet some female veterans of World War II, including a woman who transmitted messages to and from the beaches on D-Day.
France is considering banning what is called sharenting. Sharenting is sharing photos of your children on social media, right? And apparently a lot of people do that because it gets more likes and more follows. Who could these people be? And at 7:20, we'll debate whether posting pictures of your children is exploitative or just, it's just you being proud of them.
Or maybe it's neither. Maybe it's just kind of helping people see the reality of parenting. I like seeing that other people going through hell with their kids. It makes me feel better. It's not necessarily about pride. It's about sort of, we're all in this together.
Well, I could tell you this.
Yeah.
If I, on my Instagram account, for instance, put a picture of me doing something amazing, no one cares. No one's interested.
You put your little granddaughter on.
Put my granddaughter on, and 26,000. I put my daughter on, 40,000. I put my, anybody in my close family on, and it's big pictures. So somebody work that out for me. Are they interested in people around me? Are they just not interested in me?
No, I think people just like to see other people's family,
offspring.
Private stuff, I guess.
Yeah, it's different for us, because we're in the public eye, and Instagram is sort of, we are hired on jobs depending on how many likes we get and how many followers we have for Instagram.
Well, that's my problem then.
That's why you're going nowhere.
That's why I need to put my kids on my social media more.
You need to flog your children relentlessly on there and use them for that.
I don't want
but give us your views on that. Let us know what you think about that. But that is true. I mean, if you're in the public eye, you're only hired for certain jobs or certain promotions, whatever it is, if you've got a big social media following. So let us know your views.
Any talent or skills.
No, you don't have any talent or skills, as you can see if you watch us right through.
That's not what I meant.
9:30 today. Okay, back after this. Right, let me tell you about smoking, right? I'm not going to preach about smoking because I don't smoke, right? But I never have. I reckon I'm lucky. I'm lucky. Isabel, you're not a smoker either. But I often think that there's no point sort of preaching to people. You tell them this is what's bad for you. We all have our addictions and we all have our vices. And this is Steve Miller. Steve is a hypnotherapist and a motivational master. He is absolutely. Steve, let's talk about National No Smoking Day today. You and I, we could be talking about food. We could be talking about something else. So I do find it difficult. We all have our
weaknesses.
Weaknesses, that's the word. That's the word. But when it comes to smoking, what would you say, my friend?
Well, you're right. We all have our vices, and I'm certainly not going to say let's ban smoking. Everything's either about banning things or increasing taxes these days. But there is a point here that it is important in terms of motivating ourselves to quit smoking, first of all, by looking at the consequences. Because one of the things that today is all about is the relationship between smoking and early onset dementia. Because there is a big relationship. But as well as that, we've got the unusual things with smoking as well. One of the things, have you noticed that when you can always often tell a smoker, they've got that dry, leathery skin. And it's important to think about that as a consequence of smoking. But what we also have is, also if you're on the dating game, who actually wants a snog off with a smoker? I mean, you do not want to snog a smoker. It's important to be thinking about these consequences of smoking, as well as, of course, you've got the cancers, you've got the heart disease, you've got the increased risk of stroke. So it is important to look at the pain of smoking, continuing to smoke, as well as the pleasure of giving up. And of course, if you're giving up smoke, if you decide to give up smoking today, and you're smoking around 20 fags a day, you're going to save about £4,000 a year. That's a lot of money. It can pay the gas bill, the electric bill. It's a holiday, it's a cruise, whatever. So it is really important today on a serious level to be thinking of those painful consequences if you're a smoker and you're continuing to smoke.
Well, I was
but
just
of
going to
course,
say, Steve, the people I know who smoke are totally aware of all of the negatives and actually would like to give up, but just simply can't, and, you know, or have tried and failed. So there are people who know that they're doing harm to themselves, perhaps to their children, but they're still not able to do anything about it.
Yes, and I'm going to come on now to, so what do you do today if you're a smoker? Well, the first thing, there are many things to consider. The first one, of course, is nicotine replacement patches, which do have some success with some people. But there are also other things, such as behavioural things. So what I would say to people this morning is, if you're a smoker, you want to give up, hop out of bed. First thing to do, write down the list of things, the reasons why you want to stop smoking. The other thing, which is quite a strong motivational measure, is also today to get out of bed and look at those photos of your grandchildren or your children, and to be thinking about how much pleasure you get from the relationship with those kids. And if you continue to smoke, it's likely they're going to be crying and having tears at an early grave. That's a hard message, but it's a reality. Smokers die earlier. The other thing that I would say is, of course, hypnotherapy is a great intervention of support to help people to stop smoking by planting suggestions into the mind, into the subconscious mind, that you're letting go of smoking as a habit, and to reintroduce something much more positive to help you to manage the habit as you move forward. So there are many things that we can do there. And I would say it's not just about nicotine replacement patches. It's also about behavioural things. Let's also remember vaping as well. If you're going to start vaping, what you're going to do is reduce the toxins. So what that means is you're less likely to have cancer and you're less likely to have heart disease. So there are many different things that we can do on this day, which of course is called National No Smoking Day.
Steve, the other thing is, I just want to make people feel comfort. Everybody feels, oh, it must be people. Somebody will be watching or listening to us today, and they'll think, oh, it's only me, and I have this habit, and it's terrible, and it's a bit of a dirty habit. I don't want anybody to know about it and whatever. But I can tell you this: about 50% of the television and radio presenters you will hear and listen to today will be smokers. And they will do this preachy, pious thing that it's awful to smoke, and you shouldn't smoke, and it's terrible, and it's going to kill you, and you'll all go to hell because you do it. But they're all doing it because nothing deters them from being thin. At least I'm fat, but I don't smoke. You know, so that's sort of one thing there.
Yeah, but you're looking as fat.
What's that, mate? What?
I say you're not looking as fat as what you were, mate. You're looking pretty good to me, I have to say. I looked at you this morning, and I looked at you this morning. I thought, actually, I quite fancy him. He looks very
It's because he's in his Cadbury's milk tray suit today.
See, I may be fat, but I'm good looking. That's the good combination there. But the thing inside, the people who are the smokers, gosh, they love to be thin. I see in the paper today there's a diabetes drug that they're going to make available on the NHS, and they're all going to be getting this as well as the shortcut to being thin. Can you get, or are you aware of being able to get sort of, I know you get the nicotine patches, is there any sort of injection you can get to wean you off smoking?
Well, not that I'm aware of, but can I just say something on the weight loss injection that you've mentioned? Is there is a potential, I highlight the word potential, side effect of tumours and cancer. So I'm not a fan of that particular injection at all. That is a potential side effect.
Steve, as someone who has once tried hypnotherapy, not for giving up smoking, but for something else.
Sex addiction.
that. I can confirm, and bear in mind my mother probably is watching. No, I actually don't think they could get me under. They can't tranquilise this beast. So how if someone's thinking about doing hypnotherapy, does it always work? And does it work with giving up smoking as well? What's the success rate?
It's a great question, and as a hypnotherapist, I'm going to say this to you: hypnotherapy does not always work at all. And what I would say to the viewers is, make sure you select very carefully. There are people that are very, very good and very talented at it. There are other people you go to who are they're more like counsellors, you know, the sort where you've got a rug on your lap and a cat, you're stroking the cat. So what you want to make sure is that you find someone that's reputable. A reputation is all about the results that they have got in the past. So look for those testimonials.
Always a pleasure, my friend. Thank you very much indeed. Top hypnotherapist and motivation master, Mr. Steve Miller, whose body is a temple.
Have you ever been hypnotised?
By Steve.
By anyone?
Steve, are you there? Is he still there? Where's he gone?
You might still be able to hear. It might take them a minute to find him, though. Yeah, here he is.
Steve, somebody tried to hypnotise me once and nothing happened.
This is the thing. Is it my fault or theirs? I feel like it's my fault. Can't switch my phone.
No, it's not. No, it's not your fault at all. There is there's lots of different definitions of hypnosis, and what hypnosis is an altered state of conscious alertness, right? And that doesn't. It's not a general anaesthetic, so you don't have to be, as you mentioned earlier, under, so you're kind of not aware of anything. You'll always be aware, but it's kind of that sort of sense when you're neither totally awake nor totally asleep. It's somewhere in the middle, so that your mind is open and you can use the power of your imagination to input new habits, new patterns of behaviour.
Steve, those TV shows where people used to get up and pretend to be cats and then you'd click the finger and they'd wake up, is that all acting?
Oh, in my opinion, of course it is. I mean, well, acting is one definition of it, but it's a response to someone that has an authority. So the hypnotist has an authority on the stage, and of course people follow authority, because otherwise, if you don't follow the authority, you're going to look a bit daft on.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, thanks, Steve. Appreciate it. Thanks for your insight there. Stay well, stay healthy, my friend. Thank you very much indeed. It's coming up to 25 to 7. And up next, we'll be discussing Gary Lineker's future at the BBC as he wades in to the Home Secretary's migrant crackdown.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Co.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Co. Come and join us. GB News, The People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
Let's flick through the front pages of the newspapers on this Wednesday morning. The Times leading with the Prime Minister's migration plan as he prepares to do battle with the European Court of Human Rights.
The Mail says the TV presenter Gary Lineker will face BBC bosses after likening the government's small boats plan to Germany in the 30s.
The Mirror focuses on the heartbreaking last words of Olivia Pratt-Korbel before a gunman opened fire and killed her at her home. Mum, I'm scared.
And The Guardian highlights the big freeze Britain's facing, with more snow forecast to be on the way.
Carol, good morning to you. Carol said, my daughter was born on the 17th of March, 1985. I was in hospital for almost 2 weeks, and I remember distinctly looking out the window and wondering if my husband was going to make it through the snow. So we were talking about how late in the year it is normal for it to snow, and we were hearing, amazingly, from a weather expert that you're more likely to have a white Easter than a white Christmas.
I love those sorts of stats. A few of you have been emailing in with your inspirational women. We've had this one in from somebody who's called Alan Norris. Mrs. Hutton, my primary teacher in Abbott's Cross School in Newton Abbey. So he said she was a wonderful lady.
She's Newton Abbey. Let me see. Where's that?
Newton Abbey, here.
Yeah, oh, very good.
Yeah, there's a few more. Anyway, we'll collate them and read out your inspirational. But send in whoever inspires you. We'd love it.
Going through the headlines, hopefully 2 people will inspire you through the papers today. Emily Carver and Chris Akabusi. Very nice to see both
Wearing
of
pink,
you.
I like it, for International Women's Day. All in pink.
Emily, big story today, of course, is migration and what the government plans to do about it. You go down with the front page of the Express here. Rishi lays down the law. We decide who comes here.
Yes, well, this Rishi Sunak obviously was at a press conference yesterday, speaking at a press conference, getting asked lots of questions about his new bill, the illegal migration bill. Essentially, it comes down to banning those who cross the channel, who come here illegally, from being able to claim asylum, mostly apart from in a few special circumstances. For example, if there is genuine proof that they would be harmed if they left the country, and that they will also set an annual cap on the number of asylum seekers who we will take into this country. And also, thirdly, that they will set up more fair and safe legal routes for people to come, for example, from Ukraine, Hong Kong, Afghanistan, like we have currently. Now, there's been mixed opinion. And we'll go on to talk about Gary Lineker's comments, but there's been mixed opinion. Lots of legal types are saying that this is incompatible with our international duties. Rishi Sunak is saying he's happy to battle with the European courts over this, but we've seen just how difficult it is for the government to do something when it comes to these crossings across the Channel. The Rwanda flight obviously has not yet taken off.
Although,
so it's whether you believe that they can do something.
Yes, well, the Prime Minister was at pains to point out yesterday that unequivocally they'd been successful in defending that Rwanda policy, that it had been passing through the High Court and it's being appealed, but we're yet to find out how that will proceed next month.
Yes, it'll be interesting to know how quickly they can move on this, because if it's all OK and there are no rulings against it and they do find a way to make it compatible with international law, or we just ignore the ECHR and what they say, it'll be interesting to see how long it takes for this to actually come into action. Because it could be months. Will it be before the next election?
Well, you say it's interesting. I mean, Rishi Sunak's entire career, presumably, depends upon it, because he's stated it as one of his 5 aims to stop the boats.
Well, it does.
And, you know, that's a tangible promise. So if he doesn't stop the boats, that's that for him, surely, and for the Home Secretary.
That is that. I mean, he did get asked that question yesterday at the press conference, and he insisted that it was his promise and he only makes promises he can keep. So, yes, his career perhaps depends on this, but I do think if he does stop these boats...
I tell you what, though, Emily, without it, his career depends on it as well, because this is going to play out well. Whether he wins this or not, I mean, let's cynically look at this. If he seemed to be in a fight with the European Court of Human Rights, he seemed to be defying Europe on this, this plays out well with the electorate.
It does with some parts of the electorate. Some parts of the electorate will be horrified that he's seen to be going against international law and questions of compassion and so on. But for some people, and quite a lot of people who voted Conservative at the last election, perhaps he could battle the next election on the ECHR.
Chris, let's talk. I mean, you know, as a sports person, and you know, you have in your time broadcast for the BBC, Gary Lineker, over the front pages of the newspaper, they're saying he faces a rap over the knuckles again from the BBC, maybe worse than that, for likening this whole small boats plan to the Nazis in the 1930s. Now, the thing about Gary is, he knows what he's doing. He's been warned enough about this sort of thing. I'm not sure your views have really. You know, if he's a sports reporter, he does sport. I don't look at Gary Lineker presenting football and think about his views on lots of different other.
Also, we know his views on this quite a lot already, so it's no big surprise. This is what he thinks. What
do you make of it?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think, look, Gary Lineker's allowed an opinion, and you know, look, you know what they are. He's left-leaning. He's certainly not a conservative in any way, shape, or form. What is he saying when he says, like 1930s Germany? He might not necessarily be talking about the Nazi regime, as opposed to the way that a section of the community was looked at as our problem, and picking on a group of individuals. What he did do was he put on his Twitter file the speech by the Home Secretary, and just said beyond awful and immensely cruel. Well, maybe when they call him in the BBC, they ask him, what does he mean? So people are allowed an opinion. He's a private citizen, has got an opinion, and he's speaking on his Twitter platform, not speaking on Match of the Day. Oh, let me just tell you, people who watch football, what I think. So, personally, I don't like cancel culture. I do think he's got a right to speak his mind, and you'd have to take him seriously if you don't believe it.
I think the only problem is yes, we know what Gary Lineker thinks about these issues. He says it all the time. But the problem is there are, how many people work at the BBC? Tens of thousands, probably. At least thousands work at the BBC. And, you know, if Gary Lineker's allowed to spout forth and give his opinions on absolutely everything political, are the other people who work at the BBC allowed to? Yeah. And then that could be quite revealing, actually, because the BBC has to be impartial, has to be
they can't
seen
be
as
impartial with news.
Yeah.
But, you know, why if you present a quiz programme have you to be impartial on anything?
Yes, I mean, I think this row is because a lot of people simply don't like Gary Lineker and think
a lot
he's
of people
paid.
don't like the BBC.
Think he's paid far too much. People don't like the BBC. Yeah. But it's quite interesting because last night, Nazi Germany, 1930s Germany, National Front, hashtag Tory fascist dictatorship were all trending across Twitter. So Gary Lineker is the chief of Twitter in this respect.
OK, yeah, let us know what you think about that, folks. Does it matter when you're watching Match of the Day what Gary Lineker's political views are?
Yeah. I'm just trying to find these lots of articles saying high-profile Tories have warned the Prime Minister that this is unworkable. I'm trying to find the names. Is David Davis saying that this isn't likely to be successful? I'm trying to see who...
I thought he'd been quite positive, but perhaps I'm wrong.
OK, well, I'm trying to find a name. If anyone can provide me with that, that would be helpful. Trying to find out if there have been some Conservatives who've spoken out saying it's not workable. Certainly people like Diane Abbott on the left. She said her parents wouldn't have been in this country if those rules were in place today. And, of course, we know the United Nations...
The mirror.
You want the mirror? But this is the front of The Guardian, the United Nations Refugee Council saying that they're seriously concerned about this. United Nations Refugee Agency say that this is very worrying, profoundly concerned.
Now, here's a story, Emily, that you've chosen in the Mirror, and it's about what Prince Andrew may or may not wear to the coronation of his brother King Charles. Now, if they're going to ban him from the robes that we're seeing here, if I was him, I would be very happy to be banned.
Fancy dress party.
I mean,
you don't fancy that one,
I don't fancy that one. No.
Well, he apparently does. And he's absolutely fuming that he won't be able to wear his full outfit to denote his position as Knight of the Garter.
Right, so why would he not be allowed to wear that?
Well, because he's had all his military appointments taken away from him. He's a bit of a disgrace of the family. Yes, of course, he denies that any wrongdoing, but it appears that King Charles and Prince William think that he does not deserve to wear such garb. But of course, there's also...
Didn't we have all of this with the funeral?
Yes.
What did he wear at the funeral in the end? Who won? I can't remember. I seem to remember there was a big upset, and also for Harry, whether Harry would be wearing...
They couldn't wear the medals or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, and Harry was upset about it. Anyway, I have to look
I think
up
the challenge for
pictures,
Andrew now is that his mum's not here. Mummy isn't coming. And, his brother and his...
Look, here's my point.
Nephew, thank you very much.
What can they do if he turns up wearing it anyway?
Well, they're
That's
not going
my
to
point.
strip him, I don't think.
No, exactly.
But you would have thought that he would not go against his, King
Brothers.
Charles and Prince William's opinions. But hey, and there's also lots of hoo-ha over where he's going to live, of course.
Yes. Yeah. Have we got a picture of him in this feather? He's like Shirley Bassey in this, so he is, with a big feather boa and whatever round to me. But if it was me, I'd be saying,
That's very disrespectful.
ban me. Look, they've cut out the best bit, but basically on his head there is this massive ostrich
feather,
that sits there. It's anyway, but he feels he's being disrespected by not being allowed to wear his whatever it is, Order of the Garter outfit. OK,
let's talk about the lockdown files latest. Chris, what is the Telegraph telling us today?
So right now, this is very interesting. I think what we have is the Chief Medical Officer, Whitty, and Patrick Vallance, the Chief Scientific Advisor, sort of saying, disassociating themselves in one way, shape or form from Mr. Hancock. So COVID-19, Whitty said apparently in some sort of tweet to Hancock that there's a low mortality rate with COVID-19 of 1% mortality rate. So we're going to be careful with our ideas of the vaccine. The vaccine needs a thorough going over for something that's only got 1% mortality rate. And then Patrick Vallance apparently said to a WhatsApp discussion with Dominic Cummings that although the Israelis are on the way to doing something, we need to take our time. Safety is of the essence, because something like the Zika virus, which has been around for a while, still doesn't have a vaccine. So basically what I'm thinking here is that...
Please tell us what you're thinking, because I don't understand a word of all that. So,
well, what I'm saying here is that rat and simkinship and disassociation from Mr. Hancock, who has got himself in serious trouble by handing over his WhatsApp messages to a journalist who quite clearly wasn't on his side of the fence. And he's in big trouble.
Stupid, isn't he?
But it also makes me think that they were overstating how dangerous the virus was for a long time in order to keep people, sticking by the rules and so on.
Following the rules.
But
keep us in check.
It's clearly that Mr. Hancock couldn't have done all this on his own. So there are other people on side with him. But you can see now, Chief Medical Officer and the Chief Scientific Officer were front page of everybody behind their desks giving us our marching orders. But right now we're hearing the other side of the argument that actually they were trying to warn Hancock about safety first and low mortality rates. I mean, if it was a 1% low mortality rate, and we know that the people that were mainly targeted were mainly died of it were 82.5 years of age, why were we all locked down?
Now, Emily, I saw a documentary on BBC this week, on BBC Two, about, what's that fella's name? Paul Whitehouse, the very man. And he was talking about the state of our rivers. And it was absolutely...
Unbelievable. It is unbelievable.
It was appalling.
Well, this is one of your campaigns, is it not? Or
one of my
you feel
bugbears,
passionate about?
yes, yeah.
Well, apparently the regulator is no longer doing very many checks on these water companies. And by this piece here, it seems like it's certainly not a good thing, considering the amount of sewage and other things that are being found in our beaches, in our rivers, in our seas, and so on.
Emily,
so
whatever I'm doing in the kitchen or whatever it is, or even when I shave and you flush stuff down the sink, I worry about putting bleach down, and you get these cleaners that you get to clean out your pipes and things. It all has to go somewhere.
Yeah.
And we're just encouraged to throw anything and everything down the drain. Like, I mean, food disposal units. You can take your takeaway and you can put it down.
Yeah,
and press
those are
the button.
frowned upon now, aren't they?
Yeah.
We've got Nancy
I thought it went
Birtwistle
into
coming
something
on now.
separate.
it's supposed to go somewhere whereby it's cleaned, but as we know from these reports, or the job that the watchdog agency's not doing, the water companies simply say, oh, we're a bit overwhelmed, we're a bit overworked, there's been raining a bit too much, so we're just going to pour it straight into the water.
Prosecutions of polluters by the Environment Agency, which is one of the regulators, the other one is Ofwat, have fallen from 768 a year to just 17.
Because they're not doing anything.
But I wonder if this is something, because apparently they were doing all this as in 2019 is when things changed. So I have no idea what happened at that point.
Yes.
It seems like, from this article, it seems like they've all got a bit cosy. The regulators got a bit cosy with the water companies and they're sort of, rubbing each other's backs.
We've got Nancy Birtwistle coming on later. She was on the Great British Bake Off and she has her own recipes for cleaning products that don't pollute the water system. That is at 9:45.
Guys, got to halt you there because we have a lot of things to talk about, including the weather. But before all of that, on this International Women's Day, it is a day devoted to celebrating achievements of inspirational female role models right around the world.
Our reporter Lisa Hartle went to speak to two female veterans who shared their experiences of World War II, a period that, as we know, reshaped women's lives in this country.
The war was in my head, and I was frightened, but I thought, well, you're deep down in the tunnels at Fort Southwick, you're quite safe. The men are putting their lives on the line, not you, so carry on. So that's what I did.
Mari was just 17 years old when, from a secret network of tunnels in Portsmouth, she was transmitting messages to and from the troops on the Normandy beaches on June the 6th, 1944. D-Day, the largest invasion force in history.
So I was passing messages from General Eisenhower, who was in Southwark House, and all the SHAEF senior officers giving instructions to the troops as they were landing on the beaches. But you knew it was a war because you could hear men screaming. And suddenly it hit me that men were dying on those beaches, young men. 17, 18, 19. And I thought, I don't know if I can go on with this. But I thought, no, for goodness sake, stop it. You've got a job to do. So I carried on.
Mari is one of two female veterans who are sharing their stories around International Women's Day.
At long last, the female voice is being heard. And so consequently, if we're celebrating International Women's Day, we can find lots of women who have done things that are exceptional.
Mildred was part of Special Operations Executive, a secret British organisation which conducted espionage, sabotage and reconnaissance in occupied Europe. On one operation, Mildred recalls having to drive into a battle zone to retrieve messages from those who claimed they were allies and wanted to fight.
And we turned up into a vineyard, and as we went right up a steep hill, the people rushed out from a farmhouse, I suppose, and they were shouting, the Germans were there, when we swung round the corner and right into a machine gun post, and we nearly tipped over anyway. We got through that, and because they fired at us, but it's very difficult to hit a jeep flying through a vineyard.
Mildred and Mari were at an event this week to celebrate International Women's Day, discussing how women's roles were reshaped during World War II.
I think one day in a year is not very much, but hopefully when people put the television on in the news, there will be some mention of it and just remind people that women do have a place in this world.
Lisa Hartle, GB News, London.
Well, there will be some mention of it, and there it is. What an incredible couple of tales there.
And the women who ferried the Spitfires about from the factories to the aerodromes and whatever. So all very good. We recognise and we respect you all. We're going to take a break there. Coming up, we'll have more on the Prime Minister's pledge to take on European courts that challenge his migrant plan.
But first of all, your all-important forecast with Alex Deakin.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. We have Met Office yellow warnings in place for the next few days for snow and ice. Check out the Met Office website for more details on those. But let's see what's happening. Low pressure just flirting with southern areas, so it's in the south where we've got the snow risk today, and later tomorrow a greater risk of snow further north. But certainly for today it's going to be a fairly wet day across much of southern England. Some snow already falling in places, could be quite icy out there as well. Hard frost overnight, but much of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, it's a fine and a sunny day. Just a few snow showers continuing in northern Scotland, but then another pulse of wet weather coming into the southwest could provide some heavier snow here into parts of South Wales and then later into parts of the South Midlands. A cold day. We're starting well below freezing, stumbling up to 3 to 5 Celsius. But the winds are light, so with sunny spells, it doesn't feel that bad further north. Whereas in the south, the winds pick up and more wet weather comes in. So the snow risk this evening for parts of South Wales into the Midlands and then across the southeast of England through the evening time. 5 centimetres of snow is possible in some locations, maybe 10 on some high ground. So that's one area we're keeping a very close eye on. Another very cold and frosty night. Temperatures well below freezing in Scotland. Again, minus 15 possible in some rural spots. Again, icy potentially on Thursday morning. And during tomorrow, we'll start to see rain in the south as temperatures rise. But for North Wales, the North Midlands, parts of Northern England, Northern Ireland, and later into parts of Scotland, the risk of further heavy snow. This could be slow moving with gusty winds. Means we could see blizzards, so that could be treacherous through the course of Thursday with that snow falling on some major routes during the evening rush hour in particular. So warnings in place today across the south, and then we look further north as this low pressure moves in, bringing that snow risk to Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales and into Scotland for Friday. Goodbye.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Rishi Sunak declares he's up for the fight with lawyers and European judges as he reveals his plan to deport small boat migrants.
Hello there, very good morning. Good to see you. 7 o'clock, Wednesday, 8th of March. You're tuned into breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. Thanks very much for your company.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The Prime Minister has unveiled his new illegal migration bill, describing the plan as tough but necessary. We'll be speaking to the Home Secretary live on the programme after 9 a.m.
The rail union RMT has suspended next week's network strikes, fueling hopes of a breakthrough in the long-running dispute. Walkouts across 14 train operators are currently still due to take place from the 16th of March.
Britain's most notorious prisoner, Charles Bronson, resumes his parole hearing today. Giving evidence this week, he said, "If I was a dog, I'd have the RSPCA on my side."
And a big weather story this morning. Snow covering large parts of the country overnight. Britain faces a cold snap that could see temperatures dip as low as minus 15 degrees. Weather warning still in place this morning. Forecasts of rain, sleet and snow. And it's heading north, OK? Get in touch the usual way. And you've been sending us your pictures on gbviews at gbnews.uk. So let's see what we have
let's
got.
Take a look. David in Ascot, he has sent us in this photograph. Thank you very much, David, for getting in touch this morning. Oh, look! You see, I'm jealous. That's only in Berkshire down the road. Not a drop of snow, or what do you call it, a flake of snow. Here's some snow for you from snowy, who knows, Frensham.
Yeah,
Surrey.
Again, Surrey. That's what I woke up to this morning,
Lovely.
I have to say. That's the way it is. I do have to say, yesterday in Scotland, in Tynemouth, in North Yorkshire, even on the beach in Blythe, snow everywhere. So
let's take a look at what Michelle in Great Bookham has sent in from Surrey. And Amy in Cambran has sent this in. This is what we've woken up to in beautiful South Wales.
And finally, and I think you may expect this, that's in Norway. You should say that's in Norway.
But it's still a GB News viewer.
Yeah, well done, Stefan. Right, so, OK, thank you very much indeed for all of that. Joining us now, Nathan Rao in studio to talk about this. Nathan, the thing is, I think a lot of people up north will be saying, yeah, as soon as it hits south, everybody talks about it. It's been up north, and people in the north are going to feel the worst of this over the next few days.
Certainly, yes. It's going to be in the south pretty much today and tomorrow because of this moist air coming in from the southwest and bumping up against the cold air that's over us that has come down from the north. And then it's going to be the north for the rest of the week. And they're always sort of in the firing line. When we get these northerly blasts, it doesn't really take much to work out that the north is always in the firing line for this, and the snow as well. So, yeah. And of course, they suffer the most disruption from it usually as well.
How severe are you talking about? I mean, is this the sort of snow we can deal with, or is this going to be very problematic?
Right. Well, the Met Office warnings that are in place at the moment for the whole of the week are warning to expect some disruption, travel disruption, power disruption, the sort of stuff that we tend to expect with these bursts of cold weather. Probably not so bad in the south, but it's the north, as you say, is what we're expecting. But it's a yellow warning, which was a level 1 warning. Before Christmas, when we had a very severe cold snap, that was an amber warning we had out there, and we can go red. So it's for this time of year, it's not, what we'd sort of hope for, but yeah, it will have some impact.
So, look, we were being warned that last night was going to be the coldest of the year. How cold did it get? How deep did the snow get? Where was the worst effect?
Right, well, the Met Office were expecting minus 15 last night. I haven't looked at the latest figures, but minus 15, and the night before was minus 7, and we're expecting minus 15 again today. And in terms of snow inches, parts of the south could see up to 10 centimetres, as Alex was just saying on your bulletin. Parts of the country over the next few days could get 10 inches, but that's rural areas, the usual places, the Highlands, the Glens, where snow tends to settle. So we're looking for pretty much an accumulation of proper winter snowy weather 8 days into spring.
And schools being closed in Scotland. I think there's 80 so far. Shetlands, Aberdeenshire, worst affected. Yeah. Wiltshire Police warning people not to travel unless it's absolutely necessary, saying driving conditions are very dangerous.
Yes, and this is what we tend to see when we get these bouts of snow, which, as I said, it's not unheard of, especially during the winter. We've just come out of winter, and we do seem not to be able to cope with it. But yes, they are putting out warnings, and the Met Office warnings are sort of talking about travel disruption, road disruption, snow on the roads, problems clearing the roads, and the school closures as well. Yeah, we were just talking earlier about how we don't seem to be able to cope very well with this. I mean, it's not unheard of to get this sort of weather at this time of year, and it's not unheard of to get snow in the UK, and yet we crumble.
How long's it going to hang around for?
This week, it'll be cold pretty much everywhere, going to the north at the weekend, and then beyond then, they think the colder weather's going to stick in the north, possibly till mid-March, and then hopefully something milder coming in from the south after that.
And you talk about the disruption. It gets dangerous if you get stuck, for example, on a motorway.
Yeah.
So top tips is actually... someone emailed in saying they have a battery-operated mug heater, so they keep warm with that, or something like a hand warmer that you can keep in the car for emergency.
Yeah, and it's always about preparation, being prepared for this. If you're going out for a long journey in this sort of weather, they advise against it, but if you are going out, be prepared that you could break down. I don't think this is the sort of weather where you see the motorways closed for a day. Okay. But be prepared. Blankets, food, water, medications, that sort of thing.
Thank you, Nathan.
Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed. 6 minutes now past 7 o'clock. Rishi Sunak has declared he's up for a fight with the European courts as he revealed his plan to deport almost all migrants, he said, who arrive on small boats.
Introducing the legislation yesterday, the Home Secretary said there was a more than 50% chance it would be incompatible with human rights rules.
Now, it comes as the United Nations Refugee Agency said it was profoundly concerned by the bill and that it would amount to an asylum ban.
Well, yesterday, our Deputy Political Editor, Tom Harwood, asked the Prime Minister if he's ready for challenges to his new bill.
Already legions of lawyers are preparing to tackle you over this legislation. Firstly, are you up for the fight? And secondly, what's plan B if they win?
Of course we're up for the fight and we'll be standing here if we weren't. But we're confident that we will win. And on the Section 19(1)(b) statement, I think it's really important for everyone to recognise there's absolutely nothing improper or unprecedented about pursuing bills with a 19(1)(b) statement. It absolutely does not mean that the bill is unlawful. We believe that it is lawful, that we are acting in compliance with our international obligations, and we are also meeting our obligations to the British public. And again, I just point out on the Rwanda policy, which many people said again was wrong, and we expected the challenge on it, as you saw recently. We were successful in defending that policy, I think actually unequivocally successful in the High Court. That policy is now moving to the Court of Appeal in just over a month's time, so we'll await the outcome of that. But again, we're confident in our arguments. We believe we're doing the right thing, and I believe the courts will see that as well.
Deputy Editor of CapEx, Alice Denby, joins us this morning for her take on all of this. He says he's up for a fight. Does it matter if he wins it or not, as long as he's seen to be fighting?
Yeah, I think take this tough rhetoric will play really well. I think, some people will be worried about the idea of taking on the courts, of possibly neglecting our international obligations. Some people will think that this is kind of anti-immigrant rhetoric. But the fact is, by continuing to allow this situation and not offering alternative solutions, people who oppose this policy are complicit in a moral abomination of people dying in the Channel. I think it's absolutely right to be tackling this problem, and to have the message of stopping the boats is, I think, not just the morally right thing to do, I think it's politically astute too.
And how good a job do you think the Prime Minister is doing in trying to move the conversation away from those kinds of allegations of being anti-immigrant and actually saying, I'm here for the taxpayer, I'm here to stop people who are gaming the system, I'm here so that we can actually help genuine refugees, so that our resources aren't diverted to housing people who can have a job in Albania, which is a NATO, EU, wanting to get accession to the EU country?
Yeah, I mean, I think... What can I say? I think that people are obviously, on a human level, compassionate to people who are crossing the Channel, who are risking their lives. But the fact is that this is a business model that just encourages people smuggling and abhorrent criminal gangs, and it prevents Britain having the resources to properly devote to people who come here by safe and legal routes. And I think this is a situation that has been going on for decades. It used to be people cross the Channel in trucks, and now it's just changed to a much less safe, a much more dangerous route. And I think that what's the alternative? I
mean, goodness knows, it's that great unsolvable conundrum, isn't it? And the fact that, look, we think we've got it bad, but we're only a third as bad as what's happening in France or what's happening in Germany. And it's just impossible to see how it's going to stop, because with what Mr Sunak is saying, you've just got lawyers, human rights lawyers, lining up saying, bring it on, because there will be case after case on this.
Yeah, so these are the practical difficulties, and I think the rhetoric is one thing. I think it's basically going to be impossible to deliver by the next election. I don't think it's just the European courts. I think there's a strong chance that this is incompatible with British law. I also think that it won't practically work because we simply do not have facilities as yet to detain potentially it's 80,000 people this year who are going to cross in small boats. And at the same time, we do not have the means to deport them. I think the reason why we've come to this pass and why we are seeing such tough rhetoric and such a seemingly harsh policy is because of decades of failure in the asylum system. We don't have the means to properly deport people. We're failing to process claims in a timely manner, and we have this porous border in the Channel, and I think it's really distressing that it's come to this. But as I say, I don't see an alternative, and I think people who oppose these policies without bringing their own alternative really need to look at themselves and think, you know, you're saying nice, fluffy things.
What about Labour then? Because they say that they would invest more into the National Crime Agency and use that intelligence to tackle the smuggling gangs.
I just don't think Labour have the answers here. I think that they are on the back foot. I think that they are just kind of saying, you know, we want to sound pro-immigrant, pro-asylum without having any practical problems and without really addressing the moral issue of allowing people to make this dangerous journey.
Well said, Alice. Thank you very much indeed. Very interesting. Look, we're going to ask you, you've heard what Alice is saying from her commentary point of view. What do you think? Is this solvable, no matter what the Home Secretary says? And incidentally, we're going to be talking to her live just after 9 o'clock this morning on this very programme. But would you want her job? If you had her job, what would you do? Would you do anything differently? Do you think this is the start of, you know, the Prime Minister saying what he said yesterday, the Home Secretary announcing it to the House? Could this be the beginning of the end of getting migration, illegal migration, under control or not?
What does success look like? Is it a success only if no boats reach these shores, or is it a success if they halve the numbers? What does success look like to you? Let us know your thoughts.
I just think when you look at what's going on around the world, climate change, political change, wars, how can you stop it?
The world is on the move.
Yeah, if it was any of us, would we be any different? Would you get out? Would you move on somewhere else? I mean, I remember growing up...
Yes, there are legal ways of doing it, and I think that's the point, isn't it? There is a migration system, you can apply for jobs, you can come in, you can work in the NHS from all over the world, but it's these people who want to come in and claim falsely that they are seeking asylum when, as we've seen with Albanians, that frankly is not the case.
Right, so you're saying Albania in particular, where it seems to be economic migrants.
Yeah, and look, don't forget, lots of people in this country go abroad, so net migration is a really important part of this debate. We have people coming in as immigrants who come for jobs. We have people who are born and raised here who go abroad to Australia or wherever it might be to work. But what we don't want, and everybody surely has to agree, is these people who are gaming the system and coming illegally.
OK, your views, very, very welcome. It is 14 minutes past the hour. Day 2 of Charles Bronson's public parole hearing today, as he makes his latest bid to be freed from jail, almost 50 years now behind bars.
The Parole Board review of one of the UK's longest-serving prisoners began on Monday morning, making him the second inmate in UK legal history to have his case heard in public.
What we want to do now is go to Paul Hawkins, who's outside the Royal Courts of Justice for us this morning, to sort of sum up how this week's gone. Paul, I suppose. Good morning.
Yeah, morning to you. Morning, Isabel. Yeah, just to give you a reappraisal of where we are with this parole board here. Only the second ever to be held in public, but easily the most high profile. We had the first day on Monday. Today's day 2. There's a final day on Friday, but that'll be heard behind a closed session. It's not technically being held here at the Royal Courts of Justice. It's actually being live streamed via video link to Court 76, which was from Her Majesty's Prison Woodhill in Milton Keynes. But yeah, Court 76 packed on Monday because for 10 minutes we heard from Charles Bronson himself. Just to remind you, for those who aren't aware of who he is, he's Britain's most notorious prisoner. Notorious really for what he's done in prison more than for the reason why he ended up in prison in the first place. In 1974 he received a conviction for armed robbery and received a jail sentence age 21, but really it's what he's done in prison since then which is why he's gained the notoriety that he has. 48 years in custody, 17 convictions, 11 hostage takings, 9 rooftop protests and 7 failed parole attempts. So this one is his 8th. On Monday he gave evidence saying, "I've had more porridge than Goldilocks and the 3 bears and I'm sick of it. Out of the 50 years in prison, I probably deserved a good 35 years of it, but I have been, in his words, naughty. Am I sorry? Maybe. Would I do it again? Definitely not." He describes himself now as a born-again artist. He spends 23 hours every day inside his prison cell doing art. He only mixes, this was according to evidence given by his offender manager, he only spends time with 3 other associates of his who, according to his offender manager, he doesn't get on with anyway. He says that in terms of whether he's ready to be returned to society, I'm ready, I'm chilled out. I wasn't a nice person and I didn't like him, referring to himself in the third person because he's now changed his name technically to Charles Salvador. He says Salvador is a man of peace. Now, on Monday, we also heard from his prison offender manager, who said that Bronson would not have the skills to cope on the outside. And also a psychiatrist who gave evidence saying that the risk to people's safety would be high if he was to be released, not only to the public, but also to an open prison on licence. Today, we'll hear from an independent psychologist commissioned by Bronson's legal team, also a community offender manager and a friend of Charles Bronson's. And just to remind you of what he said when he was asked what he would do if he was released out into the public on Monday, he said he dreams of walking on grass, seeing art shows, visiting a greasy spoon for a fry-up and going swimming.
Well, I just have to say, you know, obviously this is an incredibly serious case and what the parole board has to consider, it involves all sorts of different types of evidence. But the fact that this is only the second time we've seen these kinds of hearings in public and we have such a character having his case reviewed really plays well to the whole argument of cameras in court, doesn't it? I mean, he's a showman, you've got to say, you've got to admit.
Yeah, he is, yeah. I mean, he has been described as somewhat of a narcissist, and of course he's, as I say, his notoriety is because of what he's done in prison, really, and a lot of people know him for that, and not really why he ended up in prison in the first place, which was via a conviction for armed robbery. So yeah, he does seem to know how to give out these lines. I've just given you a few of them myself, and the media lap it up. So yeah, definitely one, as you say, who could be described as a character.
Thanks, Paul. Leave it there. Thank you very much indeed. So, Charles Salvador, as he is now, formerly Charles Bronson, formerly whatever
How many names?
was before that, in or out? Let us know your views on that. If I was to change my name, that's quite interesting. What would I become? Jimmy Holmes. What would I... Do you ever think of changing your name?
I wanted to be called Daisy Daffodil when I was little, and I went on and on and on about it. I was deadly serious. I liked the alliteration, Daisy Daffodil. My parents were that close to doing it just to shut me up. It was quite annoying.
The news, the morning news with Eamonn Holmes and Daisy Daffodil. I don't think that sort of goes. Maybe if you were a porn star,
yeah,
a children's presenter or something, that might be. Would
have been perfect. Could have had a very different life.
Yeah, there you go. We're going to bring you up to date with the rest of today's stories here. That's how they're stacking up with the time at 19 minutes past 7.
Rail workers have called off upcoming strikes after receiving a new pay offer. The RMT union says it suspended all action for Network Rail workers who were due to walk out on the 16th of March.
A weight loss jab will become available through the NHS in England for some people living with obesity. It's an appetite suppressant, Wegovy, and it'll be offered on prescription. Previous studies found that those who received the drug as a weekly injection over 68 weeks saw their weight drop by 12%.
The Foreign Secretary is set to announce the government's new approach to helping women and girls around the world. On International Women's Day, James Cleverly will travel to his mother's hometown in Sierra Leone to visit a school and a hospital to see UK-funded projects in action. He'll also announce a new funding for a sexual health and women's rights programme that will support around 10 million. OK.
Just hold on there.
Hold your horses.
Why is he jaunting off around the world to help women and girls around the world? Very noble, though it is. But my goodness me, how many women and girls need help here?
Here's the thing. The argument being, if you invest, support, encourage, educate in some of these countries, perhaps you actually help with the problems of people trying to migrate and get away from their countries.
Maybe you help with abuse, maybe you help with drug addiction, maybe you help with employment. I could go on and on and on. I don't know what our obsession is
but I mean, it's
with spending our money around the world.
Top story.
Why? No, but why are we spending, why are we all going to say, oh, well done, the Foreign Secretary, very, very good for doing that? Why aren't we saying, why aren't you going up and spending that money in Bradford? Why aren't you spending it in Coventry? Why aren't you spending it in Belfast? Why aren't you spending it in Plymouth or Norwich or whatever it happens to be? But this is what gets me with this whole foreign aid budget. Why do we think everybody else's problems are worse than some of the problems that we have here? Look at homelessness. Homelessness breaks my heart. You go out and you just see people sleeping in this weather. People are out there, food banks around the country as well. There's so many things we could be sorting out here, but no, we'd rather go and do it off around the world, because then everybody's problem becomes our problem.
Yeah, OK. They don't have to be mutually exclusive. You know, you can support those issues at home, you have budgets ring-fenced for that, and then you do those projects overseas, which prevents people trying to live in this country illegally.
Look after your own house first. Look after your own back garden first, and then worry about everybody else afterwards.
There you go.
And that's why we've got the migrant problem as well.
That's what I'm
we're basically saying, but we're basically saying we haven't got the facilities, we haven't got... I don't know how you stop it. Believe me, I have no idea, and my heart breaks for the people who are making the journeys and whatever, most of them. I just don't see why we have to say, well, let's just take 60,000 of them a year and let's build a new town in the middle of Gloucestershire for them all and whatever. Is it our problem? Isabel says it is our problem. I don't know.
So
what do you
that's the
think?
argument.
22 minutes past 7.
Stay with us. We'll be debating some more. But this time about whether or not you should be sharing pictures of your children on social media to make money and get more hits on social media. France have banned the practice. We'll be debating it after this.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit off.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by 2 of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News.
Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today.
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Just look at, do you know what? We have got so much excitement on this programme. It's hard to keep it all to ourselves, so we're going to share it with you. It is today International Women's Day, and looking ahead on the programme today at 7:45 this morning, what are we going to do, Isabel?
We're going to meet some female veterans of World War II, including a woman who transmitted messages to and from the beaches on D-Day.
Then at 8:45, Great British Bake Off winner Nancy Birtwistle. But she is some character, right? And this is about her mission to get even the least green-fingered of you to grow your own vegetables,
That's
right?
you.
So everybody's talking about this, but we think this is a good idea.
Yeah.
We think that we should actually do this. You do it.
Oh, absolutely. And it means that you never have to be relying on Morocco or Spain and their weather for your tomatoes.
Or Tesco, or Asda,
yes, exactly.
or anybody else.
Our inbox is absolutely awash with your pictures of snow this morning. We've got views on Gary Lineker, we've got views on the Stop the Boats plans, we've got views on smoking, we've got views on hypnotism.
You've
many.
all woken
Thank
up
you.
and you have things to say. Keep saying them.
Keep
GB
saying
Views at gbnews.uk. No, we need to get a load of this one. In France, what they want to do is they want parents stopped from sharing pictures of their children on social media. You could not make this up, right? But this is absolutely true.
Yeah, this isn't in private social media groups. This is in public ones where people are arguably making money. They say it's wrong for influencers to earn fame and money through documenting their children's lives in a phenomenon that's called sharenting.
So it's like share and parenting, okay? So we are in an age where social media is part of daily life for so many of us is a legal ban. And we're talking a legal ban here, a step too far. We're going to speak to two people about this. Julie Cook, who thinks some parents take it too far and it's too much information. And beside her, Ella Whelan, who says there's something joyful about sharing pictures of your children online. Ella, look, who's the little baby? To introduce us to the baby, first of all.
This is Morris.
Oh, Ella, last time I saw you, Morris was in your tummy, so huge congratulations. He's absolutely delicious.
Thank you.
And you've no diffs putting a picture of Morris or Boris?
Not Boris. Morris.
Morris,
Yeah.
right, Morris. You've no difficulty, Ella, of putting a picture of Morris online?
No, actually, after 2 days after he was born, he was in a video with me that was screened to, I think it was 2,000 people or so at the Battle of Ideas Festival. There's for a lot of women like myself, you might have to struggle to have a child, and having that child is a really wonderful thing. And you want to tell the world, and maybe you want to make it part of your public life. I mean, this is my job, being a journalist, being a commentator, and here he is with me. Would the French ban that? Because this is part of my career. I'm making money off of this program. I think it's a real intervention into parents and women's private life.
Thanks, Ella. Well outlined there. But Julie, why does that fill you with dread?
Well, first of all, I think banning it entirely is a bit extreme. I don't think it's possible to ban people sharing their children, but I do think that we as a nation are guilty of oversharing, definitely. I've lost count of the number of videos I've seen of people sharing their child's potty training, or their child being covered in spaghetti bolognese, or their child's World Book Day pictures, or their child's first day at school with the crest of their school name on the front, and thousands of people might be able to see where their child lives. So my worry is not just financial implications of people making money from their children, but oversharing can lead to sometimes dangers. You know, people can work out where your child is or what school your child goes to. And I think some people don't think about that enough. I also think that there's a worrying trend of some people sort of shaming their children for money. So you have people, awful things on social media sometimes of, oh, my child didn't do X, so I cut their hair, or look at my child covered in spaghetti, it's going to clean it up. And I think sometimes in extreme cases, it does need to be monitored.
I mean, to be clear, the French, Ella, are not banning parents from putting pictures on the internet, are they? They're actually saying we don't want these children to be turned into commodities and influencers, to be parading their children. And we've all seen people, we can all think of somebody on social media who definitely does that. And it does make you feel a little bit uncomfortable occasionally. Would you concede, Ella?
But you say that. No, you see, I
But maybe you're not in that niche that I'm in, where I see these mums parading their kids around and everything's an ad and everything.
But I see mums who are on the telly who make a fortune out of their children and saying they're pregnant or what they've had or whatever. And I mean a fortune.
That's what I'm saying,
fortune doing that. And Ella wants to be one of them. Ella says, you get little Morris out there and make $1 million.
If you have any leads on clothing lines or something like that, I'm all ears. But, you know,
well, he is gorgeous.
I think the problem is, we can all agree that, you know, treating your child as a cash cow isn't the best or moral thing to do in the world. But the issue I have is the state intervening into how people parent. I think there's a much bigger issue here, you know, related to, you know, you had, for example, in Scotland, the sort of smacking ban or the named person ban. Here you have, you know, various kinds of restrictive legislation and, you know, regulation, whether it's in the NHS and stuff, telling mothers how to bring up their kids. I mean, I am sort of sick of being lectured to by health visitors. I think we've completely lost trust in people's ability to raise children as they see fit.
No,
and also,
that's an important point.
Just to the point about safety, because no, you know, obviously no one wants something bad to happen to children, but I think we would be wrong to give in too much to the whole kind of stranger danger narrative, which is that anything you know, that if you put your child out anywhere in public, online or otherwise, that they're going to come to harm. I think we've actually, you know, more so than ever, I think we need to encourage a kind of communitarian kind of outlook where we say, actually, you know, like nothing's terrible is going to happen if I put his face online. And if it does, that's a shame. But, you know, you know, I think give people the benefit of the doubt. Most people, when they're looking at pictures of babies, think, oh, that's lovely, or oh, that's funny. They don't think, right, let me get my notebook out and find out how I can stalk them. You know.
Right, let me ask Julie something. Julie, I'm looking for your advice here. What if your baby is 63 years of age, right? I found popped on my memories last week a picture, a little video of my mum, a short video of my mum, whereby she wasn't, she died last November, but so this is my first Mother's Day without her, and it's Mother's Day on the 26th of March, last Sunday in March. And there was a nice message whereby I had done an interview and I'd said what a brilliant mother she was. She was quite emotional about it. It was quite short, but she relayed this message to me. And I thought to myself, ahead of her not being there, should I share that with the public? And then I just wasn't sure if it was, as you would say, oversharing. And I'm prepared to take your judgment on it, or what do you think? I mean, what your immediate sort of reaction to something like that is?
No, of course that's not oversharing. You know, that's an important, poignant thing for you, and it means a lot to you, and you're not doing it day in, day out to try and make money or to shame or to get likes or clicks or whatever. Of course, I think, as Ella said, I think that we don't need a blanket ban. I think we need to use our own judgment about what sort of morally and respectably okay when it comes to our children, rather than some of these extreme cases I've mentioned where people are literally sharing every single thing their child does.
It's funny, I've got a private Instagram, which is basically for my close family and friends, and we went on holiday last year and I posted a picture of my little girl, 4 years old at the time, without her top on. We're at the beach, and Instagram wouldn't let me post it because it showed nipples. And I was offended by that because I thought that was ridiculous. She's 4, it's so innocent, no one's going to look at it. And I looked into it online, and actually I was probably naive as to where that image could end up.
Yeah.
Even on a private social media account, that can get into the dark web. And we do need to think twice. I mean, Ella, you say we don't want the state telling us how to parent, we don't want, overreach, but that actually is about the more sinister side to society, which exists probably in a way that we aren't generally very aware as normal citizens that don't want any harm to come to children.
I think that's obviously something that is important. Nobody wants to have, I mean, what a horror to have an image of your child end up in the wrong person's hands. But I also don't really want to live in a society where we can't look at lovely pictures of like your daughter having a nice time on the beach and appreciate that. And I remember when I used to, when I was a teenager and I used to babysit kids on the estate that I lived on, and we used to go to the swimming pool and they'd be so excited. We'd bought an underwater camera. And, I was kicked out of the pool for having a underwater camera because he said, that it was paedophilic, and I was 16. I was a 16-year-old girl looking after 2 kids that I'd known all my life. And I think that kind of, having that sort of distrust of each other in society isn't a good thing either. I don't know what the solution is to child pornography, but I don't think it's turning us into a society that's afraid of one another either is a good thing.
Well, look, listen, it's great to have you two on. It's great to air this whole thing, but it's great to see young Morris being so well-behaved. He's so good.
Got a good baby.
Sitting still, doing all that.
So lucky.
Yeah. So thanks for sharing it with us today.
Master.
Brilliant, brilliant, brilliant. Thank you very much indeed. Ella Whelan there, and little Morris, star of the show, and Julie Cook. Thank you very much indeed as well. So share with us your views on
Yes,
that.
let us know what you think about that. And next we're going to be discussing this. It's been called a game-changing new weight loss jab, which is going to be available on the NHS. We're discussing who it's being prescribed to when we go through the papers with Emily Carver and Chris Akabusi in just a mo.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, "Nana, stop arguing." I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
It's the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage. Here on GB News, we will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We get into the newspapers now. We've got Chris Akabusi and Emily Carver here to go through those. And we're going to begin front page of The Sun. And this is the football of the Manchester City defender Kyle Walker. 90 minutes of shame. And the thing that amazes me about this is he did this on Sunday afternoon, 5:20, when United were being mauled by City. Not by City, by Liverpool. Sorry, by Liverpool. And I just found it strange that he wouldn't have been interested in that game. But anyway, what's he done, Chris?
So look, I mean, Kyle Walker, he's gone out on the lash after Man City beat Newcastle, and like you said, at 5:20, he's absolutely caned, gone to a nightclub, and I sometimes wonder about these youngsters, and I say youngster, I know he's 32, but we live in a youth-orientated culture, so I look at him at 32, he's probably around the mature socially where I was when I was 22.
Yeah.
Well, I think where I was when I was 22. But we didn't live in the glare of cameras and
phones, mobile phones,
and being looked at everywhere. And I asked myself...
But anyway, neither did I, but I never dropped my trousers in a bar.
I mean, to be fair...
Is that what he did?
And exposed myself,
He got his todger out, and I mean, that did shock me.
You never done that?
No, well... No, I got my bottom, I had my bottom out, No, leave it. We were in Tokyo, all the athletes, we were all in Tokyo, and we would go down to this elevator, and it had like a clear screen elevator. And we got our bottom out for the... But, we were 22, we were young, we were being stupid. And quite clearly, this guy's being stupid. But I want to know, where was his wingman? I think I was in Tenerife once, and there's a guy called KJH, Toto, the one and only, and I was getting a little bit trolleyed and a little bit stupid. He said, Boosie, leave it, son. You don't want it. So we had wingmen back in the day who would make sure that you didn't cross the line. Or, if some of the sort of the ladies that you were with and are getting a little bit too fresh, your wingman is supposed to be there to sort of protect you. Where's his wingman?
Well, the wingmen just take pictures now.
And
sell them.
Yeah, and so that's a shock for me. I mean, look, quite clearly that it is out of order, but I just think I would hate to be a young man in today's world.
Yeah, well, what can I say?
An out-of-control young man, because I'm sure there are lovely young men.
He's a married man.
Yes.
And he's a father.
But she's binned him. She binned him in 2019,
Don't
took him back, and then she binned him again.
Never speak to him again, and don't let him see the children.
This is him acting out.
Emily, what about The Telegraph? A Catholic anti-abortion activist arrested for silently praying. Police telling her praying is an offence.
Well, yes, this seems to be coming up quite a lot, actually, the conversation over whether you should be able to pray outside an abortion clinic. Some people say it's a form of harassment. Other people say it's a fundamental freedom of speech matter. Anyway, there's been a video circulating where a police tells someone who is silently praying, that's what it appears to be, a woman silently praying, but close to an abortion clinic, and the police officer tells her that this is a crime. Praying is a crime, and he continues to stand next to her. I don't know if she was then taken off in cuffs. It doesn't appear to be so. The police officer looked a bit confused about what to do next. But it's a really It's a really difficult one. I personally believe that you should never tell someone that they cannot pray silently on a street.
Exactly.
Well, I'll tell you what, if they were any other religion but Christian, they wouldn't have had a problem or an issue with it. It's they feel that Christianity is valueless, they can insult it, they can humiliate it, they can do whatever they want, so therefore that's probably ignorance on the officer's behalf.
I think you're right. And we saw, obviously, in Wakefield, when a Quran got scuffed, how much uproar there was, how the police officer, the community leaders, the local councillor all got involved to tell the mother of this child off. And then, on the other hand, you have this woman being, talked to by a police officer because she was silently praying.
I suppose the debate that we're not even entering into is about, protest outside an abortion clinic, and presumably the police were called because a woman felt intimidated, affronted, upset on what was, no matter what your view is and what her view was, a very, very difficult day for
But I don't know. They could have just been patrolling the area because they know it's within this limit. I don't know.
But we're allowed to feel uncomfortable and intimidated. Yes. And although we are a social liberal country, there are still some very ardent Bible-believing Christians who want to pray for the city, want to pray for souls. They believe that they are fighting a spiritual battle. And if she's silently there, you know what she's doing.
But there are exclusion zones outside abortion clinics in some instances. There can be legal ways of preventing people from doing anything, protesting, silently praying, to protect the rights of the woman doing something which is legal in this country, which is get an abortion if they choose to do so.
So you're not suggesting... we're not suggesting that she stood in the way of women going to the abortion clinic, and you've got your right. But this lady has also got a right to stand in the corner and to pray to her God. Because, as you said, if this was the Muslim God or the Hindu God, we wouldn't be talking about it. And why are we so against ourselves? Why is it that we're so against ourselves that we slaughter our own traditions? She's a Bible-believing Christian who honestly believes that silently she can ask for protection of the city, protection of the wife, protection of the baby, protection, and that's all she's doing.
On the same, I do think that women should be free to attend abortion clinics without the threat of harassment. I know there are different views on this channel about what should and shouldn't, be done with these exclusion zones, but I do think most women who make that decision are not doing it for fun. They have come to the conclusion that they need to have an abortion for one reason or another, and it's a difficult day.
Correct.
So they don't need people handing them pamphlets as they walk in my opinion.
OK, the weather is making a big story. Isabel, hand me the Guardian there, will you? The reason I ask is because...
You've got a bad shoulder.
A bad shoulder, I have a broken shoulder. It's not a bad shoulder. You just sound like my wife.
All right.
Oh, he just has an ache in his shoulder.
Sorry,
no, my shoulder's smashed and
You've got
broken.
a giant hump.
Yes, I actually am developing a hump.
I know, you told me. You made me feel it on air the other day. Oh, yeah.
You're becoming man and wife, you two.
I know, we bicker like an old couple.
Here's a brilliant photograph, front page of The Guardian, and it talks about Britain being hit by a big freeze. I think this is Blythe, as I understand. It doesn't say where the pictures, but basically it's a beach and beach huts and snow all over the beach.
Absolutely. It says from Tyneside to Buckinghamshire, we were pelted with snow yesterday, and there's a potential of it's going down to -15, and it's coming up to sort of March and spring. I think officially we are in spring, aren't we? Clock's going back in a couple of weeks' time. It stopped my golf yesterday.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It cancelled my golf.
And where was that?
That's in Bedfordshire, Woburn, Bedfordshire. Yeah, we couldn't. They closed the golf course. Apparently, the golf course will be open today. So I did say to Emily,
I don't think it will be open today.
Oh, yes, it will. Although it was snowing when I came down, because by about 10, 11 o'clock, the snow had gone anyway.
Well, I have news for you. It's snowing this morning.
I know. It snowed when I left home today. But I'm trusting that by 11:20, when I'm supposed to be on the tee, it will be gone. And Woburn won't send me a message saying, wrong answer.
I don't know why on earth you'd want to play golf in this freezing weather.
But what I've got to say is the roads were great because it's very well prepared. Normally, in the UK, you expect to have a grind to a halt. But coming in, it was great. The roads were well de-iced, and came with no problems. Although I did nearly kill somebody in London who decided to walk across the level crossing. So, not level crossing. Well, when it was green, me to go, them to stop, just walked in front of my car.
Probably drunk.
Oh, this is what somebody else said. But I mean, like here.
For you. Right, okay.
Yeah.
You can grit roads.
Yes.
But you can't grit a golf course.
No.
So what? So I mean, I hate to. In Surrey, where I came in from, there was snow on the ground.
Yes, there was snow and ground in Bedfordshire, but it's going to be melting and it's going to get to like 4 degrees and we'll be okay. Woburn, please don't stop my golf course today.
Emily, I'm sorry to disappoint you. We promised to talk about the fat jab, but we're going to do it next hour. We're out of time.
OK, stay tuned.
We'll stay tuned for the fat jab, because I do love this story. Game-changing drug, but lots of warnings as well about the side effects of that. We'll talk about that just after 8:30 with Emily Carver and Chris Akabusi.
Well, today is International Women's Day, and it's a day devoted to celebrating achievements of inspirational female role models around the world. Let's face it, do you know a woman that's not inspirational?
Oh, yeah, I know a few.
Do you?
Yes, of course.
So you can't say, there's no man that's inspirational. I mean, men are just all evil and awful and should be thrown in the bin.
You said it, not me.
But women, of course, we don't have a special man's day.
Who runs the world?
But we have a special women's day, right? So
hey,
anyway.
you're on fire today, mate. You're on fire today,
well,
mate.
No, I'm just saying.
Take away International Women's Day, says Eamonn Holmes.
Yeah, well, it should be a man's day.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Every day's man's day. We get one day of the year. Right, our reporter Lisa Harkle has been to speak to 2 amazing female World War II veterans.
They are amazing.
You like these ones?
They are amazing.
And this is how it shaped their lives.
The war was in my head, and I was frightened, but I thought, well, you're deep down in the tunnels at Fort Southwick, you're quite safe. The men are putting their lives on the line, not you, so carry on. So that's what I did.
Mari was just 17 years old when, from a secret network of tunnels in Portsmouth, she was transmitting messages to and from the troops on the Normandy beaches on June the 6th, 1944. D-Day, the largest invasion force in history.
So I was passing messages from General Eisenhower, who was in Southwark House, and all the SHAEF senior officers giving instructions to the troops as they were landing on the beaches. But you knew it was a war because you could hear men screaming. And suddenly it hit me that men were dying on those beaches, young men, 17, 18, 19. And I thought, I don't know if I can go on with this. But I thought, no, for goodness sake, stop it. You've got a job to do. So I carried on.
Mari is one of 2 female veterans who are sharing their stories around International Women's Day.
At long last, the female voice is being heard. And so consequently, if we're celebrating International Women's Day, we can find lots of women who have done things that are exceptional.
Mildred was part of Special Operations Executive, a secret British organisation which conducted espionage, sabotage and reconnaissance in occupied Europe. On one operation, Mildred recalls having to drive into a battle zone to retrieve messages from those who claimed they were allies and wanted to fight.
And we turned up into a vineyard, and as we went right up a steep hill, the people rushed out from a farmhouse, I suppose, and they were shouting the Germans were there. When we swung round the corner and right into a machine gun post, and we nearly tipped over anyway. We got through that, and because they fired at us, but it's very difficult to hit a jeep flying through a vineyard.
Mildred and Mari were at an event this week to celebrate International Women's Day, discussing how women's roles were reshaped during World War II.
I think one day in a year is not very much, but hopefully when people put the television on in the news, there will be some mention of it and just remind people that women do have a place in this world.
Lisa Hartle, GB News, London.
Thank you, Lisa. And the thing about those 2 women is not only their inspiration for the job that Lisa reported on there during the Second World War, how well do they look?
Oh, my gosh, yeah.
How well?
Funny.
Hair done, everything, looking fantastic. That's the thing, they've turned up and they're still turning up.
Yeah.
Absolutely, that is inspiration.
And we're going to turn up a bit more after this. We'll be talking about Rishi Sunak as he vows to take on European courts that challenge his migrant plan.
Before that, we're just going to bring you up to date on this weather situation, where the snow is and if it's going to affect you. Let's have a look. Alex Deakin, good morning.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. We have Met Office yellow warnings in place for the next few days for snow and ice. Check out the Met Office website for more details on those. But let's see what's happening. Low pressure just flirting with southern areas, so it's in the south where we've got the snow risk today, and later tomorrow a greater risk of snow further north. But certainly for today it's going to be a fairly wet day across much of southern England. Some snow already falling in places, could be quite icy out there as well. Hard frost overnight, but much of Scotland, Northern Ireland, northern England, it's a fine and a sunny day. Just a few snow showers continuing in northern Scotland, but then another pulse of wet weather coming into the southwest could provide some heavier snow here into parts of South Wales and then later into parts of the South Midlands. A cold day. We're starting well below freezing, stumbling up to 3 to 5 Celsius. But the winds are light, so with sunny spells, it doesn't feel that bad further north. Whereas in the south, the winds pick up and more wet weather comes in. So the snow risk this evening for parts of South Wales into the Midlands and then across the southeast of England through the evening time. 5 centimetres of snow is possible in some locations, maybe 10 on some high ground. So that's one area we're keeping a very close eye on. Another very cold and frosty night, temperatures well below freezing in Scotland. Again, minus 15 possible in some rural spots. Again, icy potentially on Thursday morning. And during tomorrow, we'll start to see rain in the south as temperatures rise. But for North Wales, the North Midlands, parts of northern England, Northern Ireland, and later into parts of Scotland, the risk of further heavy snow. This could be slow moving with gusty winds. Means we could see blizzards, so that could be treacherous through the course of Thursday with that snow falling on some major routes during the evening rush hour in particular. So warnings in place today across the south, and then we look further north as this low pressure moves in, bringing that snow risk to Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales and into Scotland for Friday. Goodbye.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things. We've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512.
Virgin Media Channel 604.
Freesat Channel 216.
Freeview Channel 236.
And YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio.
With the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hello, I'm Michael Portillo. You can join me every Sunday on GB News. Remember to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel and to download the GB News app to stay up to date with the latest GB News content. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Rishi Sunak declares he's up for the fight with lawyers and European judges as he reveals his plan to deport small boat migrants.
A very good morning. Thank you for your company. Thanks for joining us. It's 8 o'clock on Wednesday, the 8th of March. This is Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn, Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Leading our news this morning, the Prime Minister's unveiled his new illegal immigration bill, or migration bill, describing the plans as tough but necessary. We've got the Home Secretary live after 9 o'clock this morning for her reaction.
The RMT union has suspended next week's Network Rail strikes, fueling hopes of a breakthrough in the long-running dispute. Walkouts across 14 train operators are currently still due to take place from the 16th of March.
Britain's most notorious prisoner, Charles Bronson, resumes his parole hearing today. We're live from the Royal Courts of Justice.
48 years in prison, 17 convictions, 11 hostage takings and 7 failed parole attempts. But will number 8 be the one where he's finally released into the public? We'll recap day 1 and look ahead to day 2.
And you could see some snow on Paul's shoulders there. It is covering large parts of the country overnight. The UK is facing a cold snap that could see temperatures dip as low as minus 15 degrees. Weather warnings are still in place this morning with forecasts of rain, sleet and snow.
Thank you very much indeed for getting in touch today. Challenge migrants. People are saying, Christine, good morning, Christine. I hope this bill is passed. I voted for Brexit to get our borders back. But will you? That's what we'll be asking the Home Secretary. How realistic is that wish? Carl says the only way we'll stop this is for Europe to put their borders back up. And Victoria says charity begins at home. Our politicians must help and care for this country first.
And we've been inundated with your snow pictures. Let's take a look at a few that you've been sending in. This one, I think, has come in from Surrey in Guildford. Gosh, that's a very snowy scene there. Catherine in Bluebell Hill sent us this picture. Thank you, Catherine. Crikey, that's in Kent.
And from Frensham in Surrey. A nice one there, not sure who that's from, but Dawn says, oh, it's from Dawn. No, it's not. This is next up is Tiverton. And Dawn says, good morning from a very snowy Tiverton, and very beautiful it looks.
Staying in the West Country, Don in Bristol has sent us this. And finally, Dee in Pembrokeshire in beautiful Wales has sent us this snowscape as well. Keep those pictures coming in. We love to see what it's like where you are.
Top story this morning, Rishi Sunak's declared he's up for the fight with European courts as he reveals his plan to deport almost all migrants who arrive on small boats.
Introducing the legislation yesterday, the Home Secretary said there was more than a 50% chance it would be incompatible with human rights rules.
Now, it comes as the United Nations Refugee Agency says this was profoundly concerned by the bill and that it would amount to an asylum ban.
Well, yesterday, our Deputy Political Editor Tom Harwood asked the Prime Minister if he's ready for challenges to the new bill.
Already legions of lawyers are preparing to tackle you over this legislation. Firstly, are you up for the fight? And secondly, what's plan B if they win?
Of course we're up for the fight and wouldn't be standing here if we weren't. But we're confident that we will win. And on the Section 19(1)(b) statement, I think it's really important for everyone to recognise there's absolutely nothing improper or unprecedented about pursuing bills with a 19(1)(b) statement. It absolutely does not mean that the bill is unlawful. We believe that it is lawful, that we are acting in compliance with our international obligations, and we are also meeting our obligations to the British public. And again, I just point out on the Rwanda policy, which many people said again was wrong, and we expected the challenge on it. As you saw recently, we were successful in defending that policy. I think actually unequivocally successful in the High Court. That policy is now moving to the Court of Appeal in just over a month's time, so we'll await the outcome of that. But again, we're confident in our arguments. We believe we're doing the right thing, and I believe the courts will see that as well.
That was the Prime Minister's response to Tom Harwood's question. And we can speak to Tom, who joined us in the studio this morning. Just what he said there, very defiant, very clear that he believes they'll be successful in the court. Does that chime with what the Home Secretary said, that there was more than a 50% chance that this was in contravention of human rights rules?
Yes, it's interesting because on the face of the bill, there is what's called a 19(1)B compatibility statement. And that is a note by the Home Secretary saying she's not committed to saying that this legislation is compatible with the Human Rights Act, which transposed the ECHR into domestic UK law back in the 1990s. Now, it's true to say that there's been other legislation in the past. The Prime Minister noted it there back in 2003. The Labour Party also passed legislation that had one of these compatibility statements on, but it's not particularly common to do this. And it does mean there is ambiguity here, that the government acknowledges they could be wrong. Now, Rishi Sunak standing there at that podium yesterday saying he believes he's right, that he will win in court, that this legislation is legal, is compatible. But clearly that 19(1)B statement on the face of the bill shows that there is significant doubt from the Home Secretary that it is compatible, and that opens the door to all sorts of legal challenges.
Yeah, and look, that's their view, clearly. You did ask what's the plan B, and I assume you mean by that, are we going to pull out of the ECHR if you're unsuccessful? And he wouldn't commit to that, but presumably that's the natural step.
Well, he wouldn't commit to any sort of plan B. He says this will be legal, this will be successful, we will win, and we're up for the fight. Yet the lawyers have won against the government before. Of course, the Rwanda policy was announced last year and not a single flight has taken place yet. Of course, those legal battles are ongoing, and to be fair, the government has won one of them. But it is interesting to see that the government is not committing to any sort of plan B, is not acknowledging that this policy might not stand up against the legions of lawyers who will inevitably tackle it. And that is a big issue for this government, because no doubt there are disagreements around that cabinet table. There are some people like the Home Secretary who is willing to pull out of the ECHR. Indeed, she stood for the Conservative Party leadership on that platform last summer. And then there are those around the cabinet table who absolutely would not like to do that. Such as the Attorney General and potentially the Prime Minister. And that is a big rift that clearly they don't want to open up. They want to paper over. And that's why the Prime Minister wouldn't commit to talking about any sort of plan B. Their plan A, frankly, has to work to keep their party together.
And what does the plan A working look like, aside from the legal context? He said stopping the small boats. I mean, does he genuinely think we'll have a situation where there isn't a single crossing of the channel?
Well, some of my colleagues in the lobby asked this precise question, which is, what does success look like? Are you going to stand here in 2024, if this bill becomes an act, and say, what is the measure of success? Does this bill mean that there will be not a single boat arriving? The Prime Minister was careful to not commit to saying that. He said that this is not a silver bullet, this is part of a solution. There are other things that he wants to achieve as well, more returns agreements, more cooperation with particularly the French, but also other Europeans as well, data sharing and the like. There are lots of different strands to this, and the Prime Minister said a phrase that I think we're going to hear quite a lot from him in the coming weeks and months, which is, I will only promise what I can deliver, and I will deliver what I can promise.
Okay. Tom, thank you very much indeed. We're going to be speaking to the Home Secretary. We'll be delivering her. What will she be promising? Suella Braverman, just after 9 this morning. Day 2 of Charles Bronson's public parole hearing as he makes his latest bid to be freed from jail after almost 50 years behind bars.
The parole board review of one of the UK's longest-serving prisoners began on Monday morning, making him the second inmate in UK legal history to have his case heard in public.
Let's go to Paul Hawkins live outside the Royal Courts of Justice as to what's happened and what's in store today. Paul, good morning.
Yeah, morning to you, Eamonn. So it's day 2 of this 3-day hearing, Monday, Wednesday, Friday. The first 2 days held in public. In fact, this is only the second parole board hearing ever to be held in public and easily the most high profile. Friday's hearing will be a closed session, and then the parole board will retire to reach their verdicts, and then they'll write to Charles Bronson's legal team at a future date. But today we're going to hear from an independent psychologist commissioned by Bronson's legal team. We're going to hear from a friend of Bronson and a community offender manager. Just to recap on what we've heard so far, day 1 involved 10 minutes of evidence given by Charles Bronson himself, now known as Charles Salvador, because he spends 23 hours of his day in his prison cell doing art. So that is now one of his hobbies. And on day 1 on Monday, we heard how he said, "I've had more porridge than Goldilocks and the Three Bears, and I'm sick of it. Out of the 50 years I've been in prison, I probably deserve 35 of those years, but I have been naughty," as he put it. "Am I sorry? Maybe. Would I do it again? Definitely not. I wasn't a nice person, and I didn't like him," referring to himself in the third person. Salvador is a man of peace. He says that he's now ready, he's chilled out, and I handle situations 100 times better than I'm used to. I'm no longer angry. Remember, this is one of Britain's most notorious prisoners, known more for what he's done in prison than what he did in terms of getting to prison in the first place. A conviction for armed robbery in 1974, aged 21. He has spent 48 years in custody, 17 convictions, 11 hostage takings, and 9 rooftop protests, and 7 failed parole attempts. On Monday, we also heard from his prison offender manager, who said Bronson would not have the skills to cope on the outside. And we also heard from a psychiatrist who said the risk to people's safety would be high if he was released into a community or moved to an open prison. He was also asked that if he was released, what would he do with his time outside in the wider public? And he said he'd dream of walking on grass, seeing art shows. He's keen to visit a greasy spoon for a fry-up, and he'd also like to go swimming, presumably not at the same time.
Paul, thank you very much. We should point out, when Paul was describing the hours he spends in jail painting, the artist's impression of the scene in court popped up. There's no suggestion that was his own work at that point. That was just a coincidence. Paul, thank you.
Thank you. At 12 minutes now past 8, let's bring you up to date with what else is happening news-wise. Rail workers have called off upcoming strikes after receiving a new pay offer. The RMT union says it has suspended all action for Network Rail workers ahead of the strike on the 16th of March.
A story we're going to be talking about in the papers just after 8:30 is this weight loss jab. It's going to become available through the NHS in England for some people living with obesity. The appetite suppressant Wegovy will be offered on prescription. Previous studies found that those who received the drug as a weekly injection over 68 weeks saw their weight drop by 12%.
The Foreign Secretary is set to announce the government's new approach to helping women and girls around the world. It's International Women's Day. James Cleverly will travel to his mother's hometown, Sierra Leone, to visit a school and a hospital to see UK-funded projects. He'll also announce new funding for a sexual health and rights programme that will support around 10 million women.
Lots of views coming in as we've been discussing on Channel Migrants. Christine says, "I hope this bill is passed. I voted for Brexit to get our borders back." And Carl says, "The only way we will stop this is for Europe to put their borders back up."
Inspirational women on this International Women's Day. According to Sharon, she says, our late Queen Elizabeth II, she had such dedication to the country and the Commonwealth all her life. And Pete says, like many of you reflecting this, the inspirational females in my life, my wonderful twin sister and my amazing late mother.
Your favourite, your inspirational woman, you also chose a royal, didn't you?
Yeah, I did. I mean, I suppose I'd have to say the most influential woman in my life has been my mother, yes, without a doubt. But I do think that we're very blessed and lucky to have Queen Camilla on the way And
oh, look.
Oh, she's not another selfie with me. Forever.
At least she's only holding hands. You quite often have a hug, don't you? Much to royal protocols.
You're not allowed to touch
dismay.
them. You know, you're not allowed to touch them. But you can see she's got two hands on me.
Can't keep her hands off you.
Can't keep her hands off me.
I'm not sure if I'm allowed to say that. I might be sent to the tower.
Well, you can always. I'll get it sorted out for you.
Yeah, you're
close,
in there.
Very close, very close. But she is, as we would say in Ireland, she is great crack. She is great crack. She's it's a very human side to her. She's very approachable. She cares a lot for people around her.
She loves a fag. We've been talking about cigarettes today. She loves the cheeky.
Is that right?
Yeah.
Who told you that?
I think you've had well, you haven't smoked, but you've had a. Don't know how to say it.
Don't know where she heard that from. Don't know what you're talking about there, Isabel.
Sorry. Off to the tower again I go.
Off to the tower again. At 8:15, has Chelsea manager Graham Potter saved his job after their win last night? Well, Paul Coyte's got the latest sports news next.
First and foremost, I'm a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the people's channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The people's channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go. But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me.
So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome back. It's 8:19. Still to come on the programme this morning at 8:45, we'll be speaking to the Great British Bake Off winner, Nancy Birtwistle, who is on a mission to get even the least green-fingered amongst us into gardening.
After 9 o'clock, stand by for the Home Secretary. She's talking about the government's plan to stop the small boats. Questions to her, views on that, let us have them. GB Views at GB News, or you can tweet at GB News. Looking through the back pages, they're stacking up like this. It was Chelsea against Borussia Dortmund last night, a game of two halves. There you are. And the half refers to Kai Havertz's twice taken penalty. So the manager, Graham Potter, couldn't watch it. But it may have saved Chelsea's season and possibly Graham Potter's job. Pochettino, could he be returning to Spurs? The Times seems to think so. The current manager, Antonio Conte, failing to commit to his future. They could be in the market for a replacement, and could it be Pochettino? And on International Women's Day, the Lionesses win again. And The Guardian reports that, following their campaign, girls will get equal access to sports at school. Paul Coyte with us now to discuss all these stories and much more. Where do you want to begin, Paul?
Shall we start with a little Chelsea?
OK, Champions League.
Didn't call it. I think most people didn't call it. Dortmund have been unbelievable in Germany. They have won 10 games on the trot. Chelsea have been very wobbly over the past few months under Graham Potter, and then they pulled that out of the bag. I mean, you've got to have your luck with you. I mean, as long as the luck is with you, then you're in with a great chance. Although they were the better side, they did have a bit of luck. I still think that Raheem Sterling had a couple of bites of the cherry when the ball bounced up, and then he missed it, and then managed to score, and then two penalties. Yeah. So the first penalty given for a handball, it was one of those where the defender's hand's up here, ball hits it, and I think it's a penalty. Although a lot of people debate that. So Kai Havertz steps up to take the penalty, hits the post, and then it was the encroachment thing. Now, this is I'm not sure how I feel about this. Basically, they say that a Borussia Dortmund player encroached into the box as the penalty was about to be taken, so he had to take it again. But there were Chelsea players that were also doing it at the same time, who were actually in there first. But they have to take it again, because he does this one of those stoppy-starty penalties like this.
It's a great skill, the stoppy-start. I don't think I could stoppy-start.
I don't think I'd start. I think I'd probably stop, and then that would be the end of it. So I'd probably get halfway through. I'm not a fan of it.
You a fan of stoppy-start?
No.
You don't like the stoppy-starty?
No. Well, just in any sport. I just hate it, whistles going, and just get on with it.
It is get on with it, because the thing is, it's the whole idea is you put off the goalkeeper, but the rule of the game is that you have to keep moving. Yes. Even though it looks stoppy-starty, it is actually still moving.
Still moving. I think if you're a good dancer, I think if you can stop,
Do you think so?
I think you're a good dancer.
Are you not a good dancer then?
I wouldn't be a good dancer, no.
What? So you think it's a bit of that?
Well, you can't mistake. I mean, I've got rhythm.
Yeah.
I've got that, but I can't do a lot of the moves.
You've got rhythm, I've got music. She couldn't ask for anything more. Really?
I'm so lucky.
I really
am.
There you are.
I do apologise for that.
Good title for a song, that one.
Okay. I just love that question. Are you a fan of stoppy-starty? I never thought I'd be asked that.
I know. Yeah. There you go. Wow. I'm just trying to change sports terms around for the good. It will
it's inclusive.
They'll call it the stoppy-starty. And Champions League tonight. So Spurs, you mentioned about the possibility of whether Antonio Conte is still going to be around. We've got Mauricio Pochettino, the former manager, or as the manager before Mourinho, and still a fan favourite. Still everybody loves him. And if you speak to Spurs fans, many Spurs fans at the moment would be saying, we would like Poch back. But is it rose-tinted spectacles? You've still got a great manager in Antonio Conte. So a lot depends on tonight. Okay. 1-0 down against AC
Milan. OK.
What about the Lionesses? Another win for them, International Women's Day. They're doing great things for the game.
They are. World Cup coming up, and they're favourites for the World Cup, and it's the legacy. This is, with International Women's Day as well, it's all about the legacy and getting girls playing more football. Now, it's equal opportunities. The government have put forward £600 million to have girls play more football and make it more inclusive and get involved. I know that you played a lot of football when you were younger,
absolutely.
Izzy. But there was an open letter from the Lionesses, but basically for young girls to follow in their footsteps, and it's about inspiring the next generation. There's more than 200,000 girls participate in FA's Let Girls Play event across the country. So really, it's just following them from what they've done. The Lionesses, they had a tough time. There's a lot of the girls and a lot of the women that play in the England side that were saying, you know, when they were younger, they didn't get the chance to play. They'd have to try and fight their way into boys' sides, whereas now, with the excitement and also the women's game being so successful, it's just going to move on. So more money going into it. So
great.
back to him.
Did you?
Did I what? Of course I didn't. Just, you know,
You told me you
creative
played
license.
semi-professional. Was it all a lie?
I literally wouldn't even know which part of my foot to make contact with the ball.
You wouldn't have to. You would be like a roadblock. You couldn't get round
I've got
you.
giant hands, they just shoved me in the goal. I was goal defence in netball, to be fair. That's
Right.
I'm a defensive player.
OK, so...
I wouldn't want to run into you, you know, in
Stop
fairness.
being mean, not with these shoulder pads on.
Yeah,
Are they shoulder pads?
Ah,
I thought that was just you.
natural.
Yeah.
Are they
Alright,
legal?
milk
Are
tray,
they
man.
legal goalkeeping tender? You can you
Yeah,
wear that
this
to
is
your
my... I'm going straight to the game after the show. It's, you know, just
Okay.
saving myself some time.
Walk calling Orson. Come in, Orson. That's later.
Stop it, you.
I'm sorry. I like it.
Last year's Champions League final
Yes.
in Paris, so much awfulness, so much terribleness for Liverpool supporters there. But so what are UEFA saying now? They're saying that you can, if you were affected, didn't get into the game, you can get your money back.
You can get your money back on
But can you get your money back for your flights and all your wasted time and all
Well,
that?
that's the excellent point. And also, I don't know whether they're just doing this and saying, right, we've got to do something about it. Because let's face it, UEFA were denying this. We talked about this. We had Alan Kennedy on the show, didn't we? And he was saying that he was involved in it. And so now it's like, well, we've decided it's been so bad for Liverpool fans. They've admitted now, finally, UEFA. So they're now offering the price of the ticket. So, but you're absolutely right. The money that's been spent, hotels, flights, whatever the travel is. But I don't know whether they're just trying to avoid any lawsuits that might come around this and think, OK, let's offer the ticket price and hopefully we'll be done with it. I don't think it's over yet, and I don't think it should be over.
No, I agree with you.
The whole thing was an absolute disgrace.
I agree with you. You know, it's, you know, you pay for your transport costs, your hotel accommodation, whatever. You don't get to the game. Oh, we'll give you, you know, whatever it is, 50 quid for a ticket back
there you
again.
go. Keep your mouth shut, take that, and let's be done with it. But there's a lot of it that goes on with European football. I've mentioned this as well before. With a lot of English clubs that play away in Europe, a lot of the fans are treated really bad. There's this reputation that goes with English fans that goes back 30, 40 years. But it follows them around, and then you get police and security. They treat the herd... The fans like cattle, and automatically then you start feeling a tension around that. So something needs to be done. And the thing is, this could have been a lot worse, what happened in Paris. And I still fear that something bad could still happen. So they've got to be...
Do you have do you have a...
I always dread these sport questions. I'm going to embarrass myself. What are you going to
it's
do
an
now?
experience question I'm asking you here. Have you ever gone to a sporting event and you've thought, you know, that's really good, I'm enjoying the atmosphere? Like, for instance, I think Wimbledon is really hard to beat. You're up close and personal.
Wimbledon, been to Wimbledon. Actually, a highlight, I was 41 weeks pregnant with my first child, so I was overdue. And my husband took me to the World Cup England-Wales game at Twickenham. And we caught the train, and the train was absolutely packed with Welsh people singing, and your hormones, I was sobbing. It was so emotional. The stadium was incredible. And we knew there were loads of ambulances at the stadium if the worst or the best happened. So, but that was unforgettable. Incredible experience to see England-Wales rugby at Twickenham in the World Cup. And I think Wales won by...
I was sobbing too last Sunday. And I wasn't even there.
Again?
I wasn't even there.
Can I just bring something up about that? Because to draw a line under that, now this is Wout Weghorst, who I know is one of your favourite strikers.
Well, he's not one of my favourite strikers.
OK, well, I'm just, you know, just trying to be slightly ironic, but I know you don't really like him, but...
No, I don't like him. I mean, what does
he's a nice fella.
What does he do?
OK, fine.
He's there to score.
He's
he doesn't
nuisance
score.
value.
Right.
Right. So anyway, he's at Anfield, and I believe that he grew up as a Liverpool fan.
Oh, my goodness me.
Makes it even worse, doesn't it? So he's playing for Manchester United, and at Anfield, there's this thing that players have done for 40, 50 years. There's a "This is Anfield" sign above the tunnel. So as they walk down and walk onto the pitch, all Liverpool fans would always do that and touch the sign. So
Don't tell me.
I'm afraid this is coming.
Did he touch
Weghorst walks through, and as he walks along, he reaches up and touches the "This is Anfield" sign. And so now, obviously, not only Manchester United fans, but everybody else is thinking, what were you doing? You know, this is like a great thing for Liverpool
respect.
fans.
It's where you come from.
But you can't. You
What?
just
He
can't
comes from
do
Germany
that.
or something.
You can't do that. So anyway, Wout's done this, but he's Dutch, and Virgil van Dijk was next to him, who's obviously a great Liverpool defender. And now this is a great excuse. So Weghorst is saying,
how does he talk his way out of that?
Actually, there's a little less going on. So what he was saying is that actually what I was doing was trying to push away Virgil van Dijk's hand away from the sign, but it just so happened that my hands got caught on the sign. So who are you trying to kid, Wout? Because nobody buys it, my friend.
We'll not be seeing him after the summer, I would say.
I don't think after that. I don't think you will.
Mr. Coit, thank you very much. Thank you. Very, very informative.
I try my
The thing he tells you things that you didn't even think you wanted to know, but you do.
Does it with a laugh and a
It is
smile.
now exactly 8:30.
Spot on. Look, still to come. Is the winter of discontent over? More good news on the strikes front. This time the rail strikes are off for now. What happens next? We'll be discussing it in the papers with Chris Akabusi and Emily Carver.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Dubes & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.
We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this.
Is the best country in the world.
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent your views.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Westminster is going around in ever-decreasing circles, followed by the media. Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it? Join me at 7 p.m, Mondays to Thursdays on Farage, here on GB News. We will have open, rational debate. We've got to work out how Britain moves forward from this. Join us here on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain is watching.
I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Member of Parliament for North East Somerset and a former government minister. For years, I've walked the corridors of power in both Westminster and the City of London. I campaigned in the largest democratic vote in our island's story. I know this country has so much to be proud of. We need to have the arguments, the discussions on how we make it better. The wisdom of the nation is in its people. Vox Populi, Vox Dei. That's why I'm joining the People's Channel. Join me Monday to Thursday at 8 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News has its own late-night paper preview show, Headliners, where comedians take you through the next day's top news stories. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper, we've got it covered for you. Headliners, every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, on Sunday mornings from 9:30, taking the politicians to task and breaking out of SW1 to see how their decisions are affecting you across the UK. Bursting the Westminster bubble every Sunday morning, only on GB News, the People's Channel. Britain's watching.
You've probably seen politicians interviewed 1,000 times, but we do it differently. We find out who they really are, we don't shout, we chat, and hopefully we bring a bit of light, not just heat. Did you know Kate Moss?
Apparently.
Do you have a pair of jeans or a pair of jeans?
No, of course I don't. What would I do with them?
My friends are like, oh my God, what's she doing now?
Join me every Sunday at 6 for Gloria Meets, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
And if you were to pick up the front pages on this Wednesday morning, they would look like this. The Times leading with the Prime Minister's migration plan as he prepares to do battle with the European Court of Human Rights.
The Mail says TV presenter Gary Lineker will face BBC bosses after likening the government's small boats plan to Germany in the 1930s.
The Mirror focuses on the heartbreaking last words of Olivia Pratt-Korbel before a gunman opened fire and killed her at her home. Mum, I'm scared.
And The Guardian highlights the big freeze Britain's facing with more snow on the way.
And we go through those stories and lots more. We've got Chris Akabusi, we've got Emily Carver.
And we're going to start, as we promised, because we didn't get to this story in the last paper review, with the fat jab, which is soon to become available, Emily, on the NHS. The Daily Mail covering it on page 5 this morning.
Yes, the weight loss wonder jab. Apparently it could be available within weeks. And essentially it seems to be something that you have in one of those jab pens yourself and you, what's the word?
Yeah.
You jab yourself. You inject yourself with it and it suppresses your appetite. Apparently we could have enough for 35,000 people a year to have it, but they are saying you have to be quite fat. It can't just be if you want to lose a few pounds for vanity reasons. But apparently that's what's been going on mainly in Hollywood. Kim Kardashian, who's on this spread, although I've kind of done some... Anyway, there she is in a dress. She...
Not just any dress.
Not just any dress. This is Marilyn Monroe's iconic Happy Birthday, Mr. President dress that she wanted to slip into, but her bottom couldn't fit into it. So she said, and in the episode of Keeping Up with the Kardashians, she was in the gym, running and eating nothing, but turns out that she may well have been on this drug to squeeze into it. This is a scandal, Eamonn.
Yeah, well, it's such a scandal. Would it scandalise you against using it, Emily?
Well, apparently, I mean, there's mixed reviews on the side effects. There seems to be just a bit of nausea and things. Some people say it might lead to stomach problems, but it doesn't seem to be deadly or anything like that.
It's probably essential that there are stomach problems, I would have thought.
Yeah. Diarrhea.
Otherwise,
that's a bonus.
What's the point?
Well, nausea is definitely good for appetite suppressing.
Well, yeah.
And, you know, all the suggestions that it could lead to heart attacks and things, well, so can obesity. So I guess it's a balance of do you want to die of a heart attack skinny or die of a heart attack fat?
You know,
but it says Elon Musk and Jeremy Clarkson have used it.
Oh. You see, one of the great joys, though, in life is to smell food cooking and to, you know, salivate, thinking about what you're going to eat and whatever it is. And then, you know, I know it's nice to curb your enthusiasm, but at the same time...
You can still smell, you just can't eat. And just
like
remember
torture,
Kate
that
Moss
is.
saying nothing tastes as good as skinny feels. But, you know, that being said, I don't want to be seen to be promoting weight loss or anything like that.
Well,
obviously healthy weights are much more
No, don't
important.
worry. No, believe me, Isabel, nobody looks at you.
Oh,
I'm just saying.
That's not true.
I'm just
you
saying.
You look great, Isabel. You look...
She does look brilliant. She looks brilliant.
She's absolutely amazing.
Brilliant. No normal human being has 4 foot wide shoulders. That's the thing. That's the thing. So
we're back to Dallas and Dynasty. She looks fabulous.
But, you know, that's all
power shoulders.
You said
muscle.
in
That's
makeup
muscle.
this morning you loved this dress, so don't lie just to make
It's a brilliant
sorry
dress.
for me.
Superwoman on a woman's day.
Thanks, guys. Everybody feels sorry for me now, and you look like the bad guy.
It is.
Where should we go? Can we talk about the rail strikes? I don't think we've done enough coverage over the last couple of days about the real kind of momentum towards lots of talks going on at the moment. It feels like lots of strikes are being paused, at least. Is the winter of
by what?
discontent
Money?
over, Emily?
It looks like it might be.
Okay.
Because the RMT, which has been the most intransigent union, the most robust union, they seem to be putting a new pay offer to their members and thereby cancelling their strike that was due to be next week. So that's great. It also was going to be on the day that people were heading off to the Cheltenham races, so people won't have those plans scuppered. The paper doesn't reveal what the pay offer is. One might be slightly concerned where the money is coming from, considering the rail industry has not been making as much money as it used to in the past. But anyway, this may or may not get things back up and running.
Yeah.
Permanently.
And you know, the things like that Cheltenham race train, it goes right to the front door. Literally, the train brings you right to the front door of the racecourse.
Is that right?
Or the back door. What do you mean, is that right? Why is everything I say, do you say...
Because you've always taken me in your car and dropped me in the car, so I've never caught the train,
And you've never seen the train.
How do you know?
Because the train goes right up to the back door, or the front door. I think it's the back door.
Well, you're not taking me this year, so I'll have to
you didn't ask me. You didn't ask me to go.
Go over this again.
I'll find someone
else
to go.
What day are you going, Emily?
I'm going on the Thursday.
Oh, see you there.
Oh, really? Oh, there you go.
Right, Chris, let's bring you in. Sorry, let's talk about... Where do you want to go? You choose which of your stories you want to start on.
Well, OK, the UK defence, where are we?
That's
UK...
Guardian, page 2.
There we
UK
go.
to miss out on massive EU order of arms for Ukraine.
Yeah, so this one caught my eye. I am and was a Brexiteer, but this looks quite clearly some of the result of Brexit. The EU are saying that only those in the EU and Norway are going to get the benefit of the arms manufacturer deal that they're working on. They're looking for all of your old stock, send it to Ukraine. These are leaked papers, by the way, so leaked papers are vogue, and the EU will pay you back 90% of your costs for you replenish your stocks. But on the other side of this, I thought to myself, well, what incentive is there for EU countries to want the war in Ukraine to stop if we are going to sort of proliferate this manufacturing and stuff as well? So on the one side, I see that we're unlucky, we're out of it, we're not going to benefit from that, although we're still in NATO, a very significant player within NATO. But it seems that, I said, the EU are going to replenish the stocks and give people 90% back on the ammunition they send to the front line for Ukraine.
OK.
To make lots of money.
Mm-hmm. Well, yes. Emily, let's go to this story about kids skipping school. This is about people whose parents work from home on Fridays, and there seems to be a coincidental increase in the number of kids who don't show up on a Friday. So people are off. Are they off on jolly weekends or something?
Well, I don't know. It does seem like they may just be at home. The Children's Commissioner for England has been saying this. That's Dame Rachel D'Souza. She's saying there's a correlation between parents working at home and children also staying at home. But what's interesting is that this also quotes someone from the Centre for Social Justice, which is a reputable think tank in Westminster, and they say fundamentally that people's attitude towards school has changed. Because during the pandemic, it was essentially optional. Now parents and children view it as optional, and if their parents are working from home and if their parents don't mind them staying at home, because a lot of parents, aren't as good as other parents, and they might be quite happy for them to just stay at home too.
Well, so we had Michael Gove the other day talking out of turn. The government disassociated himself from what he said, but he was saying these folks who don't insist their children go to school regularly should have their benefits.
I mean, am I evil? But I do think that's not the worst idea, because truancy is not fair on anyone. It's not fair on the child. It's not fair on the other people in the school. It's not fair on the teachers. It's not fair on society. So it would be a good way to get them back to school.
Yeah, but I'm
perhaps
suggesting that maybe a lot of people who are working from home on a Friday aren't on benefits.
No.
So what do you do then?
We fine them. If I take my child out of school, we get a fine.
They're already fined, right?
Yes, so we need to up the fines and put that money into resources for the school. You get all sorts of problems
Was it just
solved.
me? I used to look forward to school on a Friday. There used to be a lot of sport
Fish and chip
things.
Friday.
Yeah,
Assemblies on a Friday.
Yeah, I mean, I've no bad memories about school on a Friday. You used to take me out of school on a Monday. I'd agree with that, but not so much on a Friday. But it is it is interesting.
Yes, it would be interesting to know whether this is middle-class parents who are working from home in office jobs, or whether this is more people on benefits, or what. We don't know the socio-economic
Just
breakdown.
bunting off, yeah. Now, in the Daily Telegraph, on the front page, Chris, there's a story here that the Prime Minister may want to take this man, Simon Case, out of school.
Yeah.
He is the Cabinet Secretary.
Yeah, Simon Case has been in his job for the last 2.5 years. He's seen 3 Prime Ministers in his time, and he's been caught up in the Telegraph leaks, and what's very clear is that he was imprudent in some of his discussions about some of his ministers. Now,
some of them. I mean, the Prime Minister.
The Prime Minister
one of them.
and Mr Sunak as well. With the Prime Minister, he feels that Prime Minister was all over the place. He's going to be a killjoy for bouncing Boris. And, you can tell that Case is a lot more procedural, systematic in his thinking and the way that he operates, and wasn't quite happy with a flamboyant, all over the place, monkey mind Boris Johnson, who could do things by the hoof.
Monkey mind.
Monkey mind, well, that's what it's called in that thinking. It's all over the place. But the challenge, and I might be accused of that one, yeah. But the problem is that what we're seeing here is we've seen private messages that weren't really meant for public consumption, and he was talking to Mr Hancock, and just imagine all the people who speak to Mr Hancock must now be quaking in their boots. But he was naive in some of the things that he said, because what you say in the dark sometimes comes to the light. And it's come to the light, and it's not going to be in good shape.
Look, some of the comments he made, perhaps, calling Rishi Sunak, I think it was bonkers at one point. The comments you could probably get away with about the colleagues or members of the cabinet. It's laughing at people, or appearing to laugh at people who are going into quarantine hotels.
Well, yes, it does just show that the attitude was, well, pretty disturbing. The way that, power corrupts, and we see through these messages that it can corrupt, absolutely. I mean, mocking people for being in isolation, in quarantine, is rather puke-enticing.
So should he stay as Cabinet Secretary, in your view?
Well,
we'll ask this to Bradman if we get the chance.
Apparently he's considering leaving.
Wow, that's convenient. All right.
Guys, thank you very much indeed. Emily, I'm sorry, we've got to cut across you because Mr Akabusi has got a 10:30 tee off time that he thinks he's going to make because it's... but I just... What's the weather like in Bedfordshire? Somebody let us know, and we'll see on the courses. Guys, really enjoyed listening to you.
Thank you, Emily.
Thank you,
See you again soon. With the time at 8:45, let's bring you up to date with today's top stories.
The Prime Minister faces MPs' questions for the first time since unveiling fresh laws to tackle small boats in the Channel. He'll go head-to-head with the opposition leader after Labour described the policy as a con.
Hundreds held a vigil in Cardiff last night to celebrate the lives of 3 people killed in a car crash. Eve Smith, Darcy Ross and Raphael Jean were found dead on Monday morning, whilst 2 others remain in a critical condition.
Scottish independence dominated the first televised NSP leadership debate. The Finance Secretary Kate Forbes, the Health Secretary Humza Yousaf and Ash Regan are all hoping to replace Nicola Sturgeon as party leader and First Minister of Scotland. The 2 frontrunners attacked each other's voting records in government, with Mr Yousaf criticising Ms Forbes' views on same-sex marriage. Now, this is a very interesting item coming up, whether you cook or whether you want to use your garden more and maybe grow your own food. The lady that we're going to talk to is a Great British Bake Off winner in the past. She's now swapping a spatula for a pair of shears.
Yes, as a long-time gardener, Nancy Birtwistle has been transforming her outdoor space in the greenest way possible. Her new book, The Green Gardening Handbook, shows us how to remove chemicals from our food and how to enjoy seasonal ingredients.
And she joins us now. Nancy, good morning. Very good to see you.
Good morning, Eamonn. Just to let you know, it's snowing here.
Oh, lovely.
Talking about the weather.
That's good. What part of the world are you in?
Well, I'm in North Lincolnshire, so yes, I'm a northern lass, very much.
Yeah. Very good. I'm disappointed. I thought you'd be out in your back garden and we'd be looking at your cucumbers and things like that. How are you doing? Because, the whole thing is now certain people are saying they go to the supermarkets, they can't get the choice that they want. Mm-hmm. And you and I are long enough in the tooth to remember when all fruit and veg was seasonal and you only got certain things at certain times of the year. What time of the year is it now in the garden? I mean, what could you be harvesting in the garden now at this time of the year? In the snow.
In the snow, yeah. Well, I call myself a self-sufficient gardener, so there's very little that I need to go out and buy, which delights me. I've got a decent growing space, but now I'm harvesting kale, parsnips, leeks, the rhubarb's just coming. So you know, you can keep yourself going in seasonal veg that we grow here in this country. I mean, like you said, Eamonn, I grew up at a time when we only got strawberries in June, and we didn't expect to see a tomato in the shop at Christmas.
Now, you see, I could kill a basil plant. You know, I've just got a talent for killing stuff, you know, plants. So if I was to have my own kitchen garden, which is something I would love to do, I think it's a lovely idea, I'd be very much thinking I need all the pesticides, all the chemicals I can get, all the feed and everything to make sure I don't kill it. How do you do it without that?
You absolutely just have to trust in nature. I mean, I've grown my own fruit and vegetables for decades, but like so many of us, I relied on chemical fertilizers, pesticides, insecticides, slug pellets. I used all of those things probably up until the last 6 or 7 years. And then I realized how harmful they were to the environment, because if you're killing a slug, you're also going to kill the bird that eats the slug. And so it goes on, and we just deplete our natural wildlife. So I leave well alone.
So when you're harvesting your kale, you don't have slugs in there?
My kale has been left well alone. What's important is how healthy your soil is.
Okay.
Because it's just like people. If they're healthy, they'll resist disease and bugs, and it's the same with plants.
Which brings me then to taste, Nancy. Can you actually, would there be a difference in taste?
The difference in taste is fundamental. In fact, a homegrown potato, you just cannot buy in the shop because they can't match that freshness. If you dig a potato out of the ground, or a cob of sweet corn, cook it straight away, there is absolutely no comparison. The shops can't do it. They can't harvest it, get it onto the shelf, and you get it home in the time that we can do it if we grow it ourselves.
What's the hardest thing for you to grow, and what do you feel almost sad to eat because you know how long it's taken you to nurture?
Well, I once had a go with asparagus, and it produced so little spears, so few spears, that I used to just pick them and eat them. So they never got as far as the kitchen because I was just eating it raw. It was so delicious, but for me, really hard to grow.
Okay, all right.
That's good. So here we are. Isabel was saying to me earlier that her ambitions in the garden, she's worried this week because of the cold snap, the cold spell and the snow coming down. Can something like that unexpectedly, especially here we are the 8th of March, happy birthday Declan, just remember that, yes, that it can wreak havoc?
Well, not really. I mean, March, we can expect snow. You know, it's in like a lion and out like a lamb. So I'm not sowing anything yet. And the crops that are out in the garden are well tough. You know, my leeks, my kale, it's not going to harm any of those. They're tough. They've been sitting there all winter. And my parsnips. So they are used to the weather. But the young spring sowings I'll do towards the end of the month.
Could I talk, Nancy, just about joy? You do all that, and we've talked about better for the soil, better for your health, the taste is improved. Biting into something that you've grown yourself, that you've taken the time and trouble, could you just explain the joy of that?
It's so rewarding. And one thing's for sure, because obviously food waste is a big problem. Particularly in this country, we throw so much food away. If you've grown it yourself, I guarantee you will not waste a morsel, because you put so much time and effort and love into creating this vegetable, however wonky it may look and not perfect, but the taste is absolutely gorgeous.
And Nancy, people will know you from Great British Bake Off, and you've come up with lots of recipes. You also come up with recipes for products to clean inside the home, which also don't have lots of harmful chemicals. Tell us some, things that you use in the house, perhaps, that we wouldn't expect.
Right, OK then. Well, as I say, I started on this green journey about 7 years ago, and I thought if I can write recipes for baking and cooking, I'm sure I can write cleaning recipes too. So I started to do that, and I've covered every cleaning job in my house. But the most difficult was trying to find a replacement for harmful chlorine bleach, which is a killer. I mean, it's awful stuff. But I came up with a fantastic recipe that I've called Pure Magic, and it does what it says on the bottle. It's amazing. It'll destroy limescale, germs, it'll whiten your clothes, it'll kill algae, it'll clean up your greenhouse even. It's an amazing, very simple recipe.
Lovely, lovely to hear from you. You're very contagious, I have to say.
Yeah, and full of joy.
There are 101 tips and ideas in Nancy's book. It's the Green Gardening Handbook, and she dedicates it. It's very, very nice. She dedicates it to her grandparents, who were her great teachers in all of this. So my first teachers who would have been proud of this book. Good luck with it, Nancy. Lovely talking to you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Eamonn. Thanks, Isabel. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Do stay with us. After this, we'll be speaking to the Home Secretary herself. Really big day for her and the Prime Minister yesterday, launching their new migration bill.
Before all that, something that's affecting everybody's life, the weather. What's it doing in your part of the country? Let's find out from Alex Deakin. Alex.
Good morning, I'm Alex Deakin, and this is your latest weather update from the Met Office. We have Met Office yellow warnings in place for the next few days for snow and ice. Check out the Met Office website for more details on those. But let's see what's happening. Low pressure just flirting with southern areas, so it's in the south where we've got the snow risk today, and later tomorrow a greater risk of snow further north. But certainly for today, it's going to be a fairly wet day across much of southern England. Some snow already falling in places, could be quite icy out there as well. Hard frost overnight, but much of Scotland, Northern Ireland, Northern England, it's a fine and a sunny day. Just a few snow showers continuing in northern Scotland, but then another pulse of wet weather coming into the southwest could provide some heavier snow here into parts of South Wales, and then later into parts of the South Midlands. A cold day. We're starting well below freezing, stumbling up to 3 to 5 Celsius. But the winds are light, so with sunny spells, it doesn't feel that bad further north. Whereas in the south, the winds pick up and more wet weather comes in. So the snow risk this evening for parts of South Wales into the Midlands, and then across the southeast of England through the evening time. 5 centimetres of snow is possible in some locations, maybe 10 on some high ground. So that's one area we're keeping a very close eye on. Another very cold and frosty night, temperatures well below freezing in Scotland. Again, minus 15 possible in some rural spots. Again, icy potentially on Thursday morning. And during tomorrow, we'll start to see rain in the south as temperatures rise. But for North Wales, the North Midlands, parts of Northern England, Northern Ireland, and later into parts of Scotland, the risk of further heavy snow. This could be slow moving with gusty winds. Means we could see blizzards, so that could be treacherous through the course of Thursday with that snow falling on some major routes during the evening rush hour in particular. So warnings in place today across the south, and then we look further north as this low pressure moves in, bringing that snow risk to Northern Ireland, Northern England, North Wales and into Scotland for Friday. Goodbye.
I joined GB News because I was sick and tired of not hearing my views being represented, not just mine, but so many people that I knew and spoke to.
I just couldn't get my voice out there. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't do anything. Whatever the narrative was, I kind of had to follow it.
GB News is there to provide a voice for those who have been ignored by the establishment media. We think different things, we've got a different style.
GB News is here to be optimistic and positive about the future.
It's real kind of dynamic and flowing, with the audience very much at the heart of it, like a big family.
Here at GB News, we talk about the things that matter to you.
Hearing the voices from right across our towns and cities, especially our towns.
All sides of the argument represented with a heavy dose of opinion.
We're on a mission here to make a difference.
And the GB News family really is here for you, and whatever time of day you can watch or listen.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
We're proud to be GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Monday to Thursday, 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. Join me, Dan Wootton. I'll bring you the sharpest takes and hottest debates. Do you not believe in prison?
I don't believe in prisons.
I'm completely stunned. I guarantee you there'll be no spin, no bias, no censorship.
I actually was personally quite offended by it.
And no reason to go to bed.
So I guess they've always been quite woke.
That's Dan Wootton tonight on TV, radio and online. Monday to Thursday from 9 p.m. till 11 p.m. on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We are GB News, the People's Channel.
And right across the United Kingdom.
You can find us on Sky Channel 512,
Virgin Media Channel 604,
Freesat Channel 216,
Freeview Channel 236,
and YouView Channel 236.
You can also take us with you on DAB Plus Radio,
with the GB News app and at the website gbnews.uk.
We're absolutely everywhere.
Come join us on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel. Hello, I'm Michael Portillo. You can join me every Sunday on GB News. Remember to subscribe to the GB News YouTube channel and to download the GB News app to stay up to date with the latest GB News content. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Lawrence Fox, on GB News. Frank, fun, fearless, and sometimes serious. Much as I love a Friday night punch-up, what I really want is a battle of ideas. I want to look at things differently. I want to hear different voices and engage with your unique experiences. Every Friday at 7 p.m. on GB News.
Hello, I'm Esther McVeigh.
And I'm Philip Davis.
Whether you're watching or listening on TV, online or on radio, we handpick the latest stories, debates and expert opinions for your weekend. So whether that's politics, news or showbiz, we've got it covered.
Join us every Saturday morning at 10 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Mark White. As GB News Home and Security Editor, I cover those key issues that are so important to you. Our authorities, our communities doing all they can to combat violent crime. With the public services under unbearable strain, why are we still failing to control our borders? Defence, the first priority of any government, has been continually hollowed out. Can we trust our politicians to protect the armed forces? Join me, Mark White, on GB News.
Rishi Sunak declares he's up for the fight with lawyers and European judges as he reveals his plan to stop small boats.
Hello there, very good morning to you. It's 9:01. It's Wednesday, the 8th of March. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
Here's what's leading the news this morning. The Prime Minister has unveiled his new illegal migration bill, describing the plan as tough but necessary. We'll be speaking to the Home Secretary live on the programme in just a moment.
Other headlines, the RMT union has suspended next week's network rail strikes, fueling hopes of a breakthrough in the long-running dispute. Walkouts across 14 train operators currently still due to take place from the 16th of March.
Britain's most notorious prisoner, Charles Bronson's parole hearing resumes today. Giving evidence this week, he said, "If I was a dog, I'd have the RSPCA on my side."
And snow covered large parts of the country overnight. It will spread today as Britain faces a cold snap that could see temperatures dip as low as -15. Weather warnings still in place this morning. Forecasts is of rain, sleet and snow.
And thank you very much for your very many pictures, thoughts, comments and amusing stories this morning. We've absolutely loved hearing from you. You've been sending them in via email, gbnews@gbnews.uk, as well as Twitter @GBNews. Keep those coming in. You've got another half an hour to do so.
OK. Rishi Sunak has declared he is up for the fight with European courts as he reveals his plan to deport almost all migrants who arrive on small boats.
Well, the Home Secretary, Suella Braverman, I'm pleased to say, joins us this morning. A very good morning to you, Home Secretary. Can I start, first of all, by asking you, we've heard from the Prime Minister saying he's up for the fight. He's expecting to get an army of lawyers, legions of lawyers, contesting this, but he is confident of success. And yet I know that you have said that more than a 50% chance that the bill is incompatible with human rights rules. So which is it?
We are very clear that our measures are compliant with international law contained in various conventions and agreements, and that we are bringing these forward in compliance with domestic law. We've issued a statement, Section 19(1)(b) statement, that's Section 19(1)(b) of the Human Rights Act, out of an abundance of caution, because we're testing the boundaries of law. We're leading new international arguments, novel arguments, but we're absolutely confident that our measures ultimately are fundamentally lawful.
OK, and you're testing the boundaries, which means there must be a possibility that you won't succeed. What is your plan B? You must be considering withdrawing from the ECHR then.
Our measures, which have been set out yesterday in our bill, do not envisage withdrawing from the European Convention on Human Rights. What they do is they design a scheme which means that if you arrive here illegally, you'll be detained and then swiftly removed. They dramatically reduce the rights of appeal and challenge available to illegal migrants, and they enable the swifter resolution of matters so that we can swiftly relocate people to countries like Rwanda or back to their home country.
But no, you won't. No, you won't, Home Secretary. You know, I feel very sorry for you in that job, but you're a very committed person. You speak very sincerely. You say all the right things, but we're no different than anyone else. Germany has a huge problem with migrants. France has a huge problem with migrants. It's not going to go away, is it?
Well, I agree with you in the sense that we are facing a global migration crisis. When I've spoken to my counterparts across the European Union, they are largely facing very similar problems of unprecedented numbers of illegal migrants, insufficient accommodation for them in which to house them, and an unsustainable problem. We've seen tragically people die on the Channel in their attempt to get to the United Kingdom. This is a very complex but incredibly serious situation now. It's right that we take necessary, proportionate and compassionate measures to deter people from taking this journey in the first place.
And then to deter you, lawyers, armies of human rights lawyers just queuing up. We talked about the Prime Minister up for the fight, but they're up for the fight as well. And there's a lot of money to be made on this too.
Well, I will point you to our Rwanda partnership. That's world leading, it's groundbreaking. When we first struck that partnership, many people were deriding it as unlawful and inhumane. They were proven wrong last year when the High Court upheld our partnership emphatically in our 100-page judgment.
But then people will be saying, why haven't you sent anyone to Rwanda?
Yeah, confirming that it's lawful and compliant with all of our obligations. We're now going through an appeal process. We'll have an appeal hearing next month. We await the judgment from their lordships, but we have to abide by the court process, by due process. That's what our democracy allows. But once we complete those fair processes,
suppose what I'm saying, Home Secretary, is
to relocate people to Rwanda.
Yeah, look, I really appreciate what you're saying, really appreciate your intentions, but I look at you, I look at the Prime Minister, and I think this will play out well. People will appreciate what you're saying, but nothing's going to happen. Nothing's going to change. It just, I mean, how can it change? How can it?
Well, that's why we've introduced measures yesterday. We're changing our laws. We're going to be changing our laws so that you can't come here and illegitimately claim asylum. We're changing our laws so that you'll be swiftly processed. You'll be swiftly removed from the United Kingdom. Be able to secure a life in the United Kingdom if you get on a boat and you come here unlawfully. We'll be smashing the people smuggling gangs because they are a root cause of this problem that we're seeing. So holistically, our measures will take us forward in terms of empowering the Home Office, the authorities, to take a more robust but also necessary approach to illegal migration.
We saw the Prime Minister in front of the podium last night with the slogan, "Stop the boats." He staked his reputation on this, one of his big 5 pledges. If he fails, will he quit? And if you fail, will you quit as Home Secretary, if you fail to stop the boats?
As the Prime Minister has made clear, he makes promises that he can deliver, and he's going to deliver the promises that he makes. And I echo that sentiment. He made stopping the boats one of his top 5 priorities, and we are making that promise because we believe we've got a good plan. We're already seeing some progress. We're already making progress on bearing down on our asylum backlog. We'll be bringing forward new asylum accommodation. We have already got an agreement with France France and with Albania, and we're effecting relocations to Albania. We're going to France at the end of this week to enhance our cooperation. So we're already seeing progress since December. I'm confident that we can build on that progress and get to where we need to be on this issue.
But meanwhile, we've got, I don't know how many, maybe you'll tell me, thousands of migrants who are already here in the country. And they're put up in hotels, and a lot of people in communities are very, very worried about the concentration of people in their communities. What is going to happen to those people, and how long would that take to solve the backlog, if at all?
Well, like many of your viewers, I too am very frustrated and indeed worried about the thousands of people who are accommodated in hotels around towns and cities in the United Kingdom. And I understand that that places undue pressure on local resources, undue tensions within communities. It's an unsustainable situation. So that's why we need to take these measures. Our bill will apply retrospectively so that anybody who arrives from the date of introduction of our bill, i.e. yesterday, they will be caught by our new laws when they become effective later this year. But it's clear that we need to ensure that we can operationalise our partnership with Rwanda. Once we complete the process in the courts, I'm confident we will be able to relocate people to Rwanda, a safe country, a country that is supporting us through our partnership, and one with whom we are proud to work.
Home Secretary, there will be people who agree that there are people playing the system and want to see this dealt with, but are also very concerned that you could be criminalising people who are genuinely traumatised and fleeing horrendous circumstances. You'll have heard the criticisms from the UN refugee agency saying they are profoundly concerned that they are extinguishing the right to seek refugee protection here in the United Kingdom. May I ask you, if somebody today is trying to get into this country from Syria, how can they do that?
Well, I mean, there are 2 points here. I mean, our measures that we've introduced yesterday will also make provision for new, safe and legal routes. So
today, if they were trying to get here from Syria,
persecution or conflict, I just want to make clear that our measures are not cruel. Our measures are humanitarian at core, because we will be providing for people who want to seek humanitarian protection. As of today, well, we've just recently taken in almost 500,000 people through humanitarian routes, whether it's Ukrainians, people from Hong Kong, Syrians, people from Afghanistan. For those very humanitarian reasons, we also work with the UNHCR so that people can apply for protection in the United Kingdom.
So just to be clear, there is no way somebody from Syria today could legally seek refugee status here in the UK?
Well, we've already welcomed thousands of people from Syria in recent years because
who've arrived here illegally,
conflict and the troubles there. Many of them have come here through lawful routes. Many of the people from Afghanistan have come here through lawful routes. That's the point of our measures. We want to stop people jumping the queue. We want to stop people paying the criminal gangs. We want to stop people who are not here for humanitarian protection but are coming for economic migration reasons to avoid the route on the Channel. Getting on a flimsy dinghy, wearing a polystyrene life jacket, risking your life in the busiest maritime route in the world is not a lawful or appropriate or safe way to get to the United Kingdom. There are many other ways, and we encourage people to use those routes.
Just final question, Home Secretary. Have you risked your political reputation? Has the Prime Minister risked his political reputation on this? I mean, when it comes to your in-tray, where does this sit as regards problems in the Home Office? How important is it to you personally and professionally to solve this?
Listen, it's my top priority. There's no two ways about it. And I have worked very hard with the Prime Minister to get our bill in shape for introduction. We'll now go through the parliamentary process. But it's clear that the vast majority of the British people also see this as a very, very worrying situation. They want the government to take the robust steps to fix it. That's why the Prime Minister made it one of his top 5 priorities. He cares about this. I care about it. The Conservative government cares about it. We're going to fix it.
Just a really quick word on Gary Lineker. Should he face penalties from the BBC for expressing political views on this?
Well, I'm disappointed about Gary Lineker's attempt to somehow equate my bill with 1930s Germany. I don't think that comparison is fair or appropriate. But what I believe is that I've won the moral argument already. I believe that this is what the British people want. I believe that they want us to take a firm but fair approach in relation to illegal migration. They want to stop the boats. They want to stop the abuse of our laws. The British people want to stop £6 million worth of their money being spent every day on hotel accommodation. They want to stop the expenditure of £3 billion a year on this asylum issue. We need to ensure that we have the right powers and indeed the duties, which is what this bill will introduce, to make sure that if you arrive here illegally, you'll be detained and swiftly removed.
Thank you, Suella Braverman. Thank you for your time this morning. Appreciate it. Thank you very much indeed.
Well, we can talk now to the assistant editor.
Wait a minute.
You want a little conflab?
So that bit about Gary Lineker facing penalties,
that was a deliberate football pun.
That's okay.
Were you impressed?
I was impressed.
Yeah, thank you.
I just wanted to know. It was very well worked in.
Thanks.
Fine worked in.
Oh, thank you.
Right, anyway, so what do you think? Was it 1-0, 2-0 to the Home Secretary there? What do you think of what she had to say this morning? Let us know. Meanwhile, as Isabel says, Cindy Yu is here this morning. She says she's up for the fight, but other people have said her policy's a con.
Well, we should be clear that Suella Braverman says that, not I say that I'm up for the fight. But I think there are so many different parts to this. You know, it can only be part of a wider solution. You know, Suella Braverman there talked about the people smugglers, but there's nothing in this bill about the people smugglers. There's also these questions about the legal routes that Isabel you were asking her about, and yet there's nothing on that either. So until there are those things that kind of go down further in the cycle, I do struggle to see how this will be an effective enough deterrent. And that's not even thinking about the kind of amount of legal challenges it's going to have. I mean, the Prime Minister was saying that they might be able to start deporting people in the summer, but we don't even know if that's going to happen.
OK, Cindy, more from you right after the break. And then after that, again, Beverly Turner and Andrew Pearce, good morning to you too.
Good morning.
You'll be talking a lot about small boats in the Channel, I would have
We are. It's definitely the best show so far today. It's only day 3. It's got better every day.
Third time lucky.
Yeah, exactly. We're also going to be talking actually to a journalist who lives in Rwanda, which is a perspective that I've wanted to hear from, what life is genuinely like in Rwanda. We're going to be talking to somebody out there.
And we're talking to Lord Marland, who is he's chairman of the Commonwealth Business and Enterprise Zone. He's a former trade envoy to Africa. He's just come back from Rwanda, and he's a big supporter of Suella Braverman's policy yesterday. And he also actually says he thinks the Rwanda policy is a deterrent. If you go to Ireland and see how many migrants are turning up there, and they're saying they're coming to Ireland because they're worried if they're in Britain, they might get shipped to Rwanda. So maybe it's going to work.
I'm going to meet one of my heroes today, Catherine Birbal-Singh, the woman who's known as the country's strictest head teacher. She's going to be on because apparently 1 in 3 boys see reading as a punishment. We're going to be talking about that. Yeah, apparently.
Unless it's on a phone.
And we've got Alan Titchmarsh on this morning. He's encouraging people to get screening for bowel cancer, so he will be great. We've got Emma Webb and Narinder Kaur on International Women's Day. We're going to be outnumbering Andrew Pearce.
Yeah. Could you ask a question for me regarding Rwanda? Why does Rwanda want the migrants? Is it
money?
Cash?
Money.
Yeah.
And it's also put Rwanda on the international map. Lots of people have been writing pieces about Rwanda. It's a very beautiful African country, one of the more beautiful. It's had a problem with human rights records a long time ago. But that's
the population's really low after that terrible genocide.
Exactly, so they want more people.
It's a technological hub. It's being, it has a lot of investment for the tech industry. And so they need a lot of young people to work in that industry.
They could be getting quite a lot.
Guys, thank you very much indeed. And you're on between 9:30 and midday.
Yep.
See you then. Thanks, guys.
Well,
Thank you very much.
after the break, we'll have more from the assistant editor of The Spectator, Cindy, you giving us her take on the stories you may have missed today. See you in a moment.
First and foremost, I am a GB News fan, and I was before I was working here. Just love the fact that we're asking the questions that a lot of establishment media won't ask.
With a bit of a twist, we not only want to inform you, but we want to keep you entertained.
It's worth the drive because you get in and the team's all ready and waiting, they're itching to go, and it's a proper little family.
GB News is the People's Channel.
It's the audience that makes the programme sing.
We're giving our viewers and our listeners a voice. I see the thousands of your letters, tweets, emails, you name it, coming in.
Britain is broken. How on earth did we get into this mess? But more importantly, how do we get out of it?
The establishment had their chance. Now we're here to represent you.
It's time for something different. It's time for GB News. I'm very patriotic. I believe in Britain. Our best days lie ahead.
Britain's watching.
Britain's watching.
Join us here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my two comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here on GB News Live, we'll be keeping you in the picture, finding out what's happening across the country and finding out why it matters to you. We'll have the facts fast with our team of reporters and specialist correspondents. Wherever it's happening, we'll be there from 12 noon on TV, radio and online. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michael Portillo. Join me on GB News on a Sunday morning for topical discussion, debate, arts and culture, and sometimes even ethical dilemmas.
I don't always agree with you, Michael.
Michael Portillo, Sundays on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and you can join me every weekday 6 till 7 on Jubes and Kerr.
You're an inspiration to us all.
Clip that bit up.
Well, you are.
That's my ringtone. My political ambitions those days are gone, I can tell you. She's only teasing. Go on. He's probably going to want to lay down now. I'll give him 2 minutes to have one. Let's respectfully disagree. That's what we like on Jubes and Kerr. Come and join us. GB News, the People's Channel.
Michelle Dewberry, weekday evenings at 6 o'clock.
I'm Simon Evans. Join me on GB News for Headliners at 11 p.m.
What's the scoop?
I'll be joined by two of the country's top comedians.
That's right.
As we take a look at tomorrow's newspapers tonight.
We're going to get into trouble.
If it's a big story, we'll be covering it.
Spill some tea on him.
There we go.
But we'll also have some fun.
I wouldn't stick up a bank.
My father didn't love me. So anyway.
Headliners every night from 11 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akue, Saturday and Sunday afternoons on GB News. Expect fiery debate and passionate discussion as me and my panel tackle some of the biggest topics hitting the headlines. It's a place for everyone's opinion. No one gets cancelled, but no one gets an easy ride.
Oh, she's on it today!
Be ready for conversations that are fierce, frank, and of course, fun. Every Saturday and Sunday afternoon from 4 p.m. on GB News, the People's Channel.
Cindy, you with her take on stories in the papers today. We've got another political story. We've got the Chief Secretary to the Cabinet, the Cabinet Secretary, that's who it is, and his name is Simon Case. What's the problem with this man?
Well, I mean, he has been leaking, his messages being incredibly unscrupulous, being leaked all over the place over the course of the last week. And the Times is reporting that actually there might be more to come. And this is a civil servant. This is the most senior civil servant in the country. He's meant to be the absolute epitome of impartiality and professionalism. And you can understand how WhatsApp kind of leads you down this road of thinking you're talking with friends. But you really should never cross that line. And we've seen from these leaked Matt Hancock WhatsApps that Chris Whitty, Patrick Vallance, they all were on the right side of the line. So it was possible to be professional in this instance. But Simon Case just hasn't been, from all sorts of comments that you've talked about on the
Run us through those comments, because he called Rishi Sunak bonkers, he called Boris Johnson...
Bouncing,
which are fine. I don't think anyone really, probably shouldn't say those things, but whatever. It's when he was being humorous or finding it funny that people were going into hotel quarantine. I remember Richard E. Grant had just recently lost his wife and he was in a hotel quarantine. He was crying on social media about how his mental health was struggling. People
heartbreaking,
were...
but
these people were laughing.
No, I get that, and I think that's really terrible. That is heartbreaking. But that Egypt, Matt Hancock, I'm sorry. You know, he is... It's not that Case is the problem.
They must all hate him so much.
Yeah, but the fact that Hancock says, oh, yes, because I want to write a book or whatever it is, have all my private, which are encrypted, which you can't access anyway. So he gives them this, and this is the fallout. So my point of view is it's awful, it's embarrassing for Case and whatever, but that shouldn't be out there. I mean, if anybody listened to any of our private conversations, we would all be embarrassed.
I think that's right, but I think we all have to be careful with how we talk to colleagues, you know, in a professional sense anyway, but also in the particular instance that Simon Case was operating in, this national pandemic. And as Isabel says, you know, it's not funny to laugh about people being quarantined. I hear what you're saying, Eamonn, about how the root of all of this is Matt Hancock leaking these messages that otherwise could never have been got to. But I think it does give us a window to show what decision-making was like behind the scenes, and that is important as well.
And part of that decision-making, quite aside from the name-calling and the sneering or whatever it might be, was actually about policy. And what's the latest revelation on the vaccine programme today?
Yeah, so this is a story in The Telegraph about how Chris Whitty actually said that because COVID was relatively low fatality, so around 1%, and I think it's actually lower than that, vaccines tend to take longer to develop, I guess because it's less lethal. And I think that's more of a medical procedure thing. But the question is now raised, you know, well, we were going through a national lockdown, several national lockdowns. It may have had low epidemic harm, but it was really bad for society. So if we could have sped up a vaccine, then maybe we should have done. And Dominic Cummings, for example, has since come out and said that we probably could have had a vaccine by September instead of December. So, you know, the lives that could have been saved in those 3 months. Maybe some people would have liked to take the risk with a vaccine earlier with less clinical trials, cutting some of the red tape, if that meant that their relatives or themselves could have been saved. So, I mean, all of this is with hindsight.
Potato, isn't it?
It's
absolutely with hindsight.
Yeah, absolutely. 2020 vision in retrospect. Cindy, always a pleasure to get your take. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Thank you. And thank you, everybody who's got in touch today. Snow over the country. You've been great with your pictures. Many pictures as well. We've got Andrew and we've got Beverly from 9:30. Here's what they're talking about.
Very good morning. We have a packed show for you today. We're going to be talking about immigration, of course. We're going to have Lord Jonathan Marland in the studio with us, aren't we, at the top of the show?
He's just come back from Rwanda, which is really interesting. And, of course, we're also talking about the King and Queen consort. Only yesterday called them Fred and Gladys. Apparently they were booed when they were in Colchester. Some cheers too. We're asking, is the popularity fading a bit?
A little bit. Let us know what you think. GB Views at gbnews.uk. But first of all, here is your news with Tamsin.
Monday to Thursday nights on GB News. At 6, it's Deebs & Co. 7 o'clock, Farage. At 8, join Jacob Rees-Mogg. And at 9, Dan Wootton Tonight, followed by Headliners. On TV, radio and online. This is GB News.
It's all about family, being in people's living rooms, all the interaction and getting to know who our viewers and listeners are.
When I was young, my dad used to say, Nana, stop arguing. I wanted an outlet that would enable me to give my opinion.
People are going through a really hard time right now, and I know that you don't feel like you're being listened to by the establishment. I came to GB News because it's the People's Channel, and I want the audience to have their say on the events of the day.
We're dynamic. We do something different.
Democracy shows that the wisdom of the nation is in its people.
I get to travel to find out what the story is from a personal perspective.
The British people aren't fools. We know when we're not being told the full story.